Welcome back, everybody, to a glorious Snetterton, Norfolk's finest race circuit for the British Racing and Sports Car Club. Here in the holding area is the LoveCars Caterham Academy. It's the white group this time. We saw the greens come out earlier. It is the turn of the white group. On pole is number 17, Harry George. Let's have a quick chat with him. Harry, confident ahead of today's race?
Fairly, yes. Yeah, I mean, qualifying, good result on pole, so I've just got to get a good start, race my own race, and then hopefully, yeah, we'll see, but I'm hoping for a good result, so yeah, confident.
Now it looks in ideal race from here. Does it feel like that when you're out there?
The car, yeah, it's all very good, so not too hot as well, the sun's not pulling out to the surface, will be alright, but yeah, the car will handle well, so we're looking forward to it.
And how much pressure do you feel the entire pack behind you, or do you not concentrate on that and just hit your apexes?
No, I think once the lights go out, the pressure just goes like a switch. You just got to get your head down, race your own race, and you know, you just got to do the best you can do. So yeah, I don't think you have to worry about everyone else behind you. But
good stuff. Best of luck, Harry. We'll see you on the other side. Hopefully we've got a few more moments to have a chat with number 21, which is Charlie Lower. I'm sure there isn't an anecdote that I can think of that he hasn't heard before, that he hasn't heard. Charlie, front row, how's your qualifying? You happy with that?
Yeah, super happy with that. The competition's very tight between all of us. There's a lot of extremely talented drivers on the grid, so I'm happy to be where I am.
Excellent, excellent. Now we've of course heard from the pole sitter on what he feels about the track conditions. What was it like out there? Do you sort of feel it rubber in and the grip change as some of the faster categories do?
Yeah, definitely. You could tell from the morning it's definitely got more. It's got grippier and grippier. We found that even in testing, that the first morning runs were quite slippery, but it got grippier and grippier through the day. And it's sunny and the track's warm, so it should be a good race.
Excellent. Best of luck out there. We'll see you on the other side. We've got a few minutes to go, so we'll have another chat with the very minty green coloured number 11, which is William James. Oh, bright pink accents on the top of the car. So, how are you happy with the qualifying?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had quite a difficult qualifying and made quite a bit. It was quite messy, so happy with third for sure.
So how much, when you're starting on the second row, you got these two, or you constantly keeping behind you?
I think, yeah, it's all about trying to get a good start, so for sure just kind of focusing. It is what it is, you know, it depends on how it all unfolds, I guess, but yeah, you want to be focusing on what's ahead.
Good man. Best of luck. Certainly see your car coming. Best of luck, William, and we'll see you on the other side. Now, I want to have a chat with this man. The Apex Predator, as the car is labelled, number 43, which is Gareth Lucas. Gareth,
hey.
So starting on the second row, you happy with that?
Yeah, pretty good. I had a setup change on my car as well yesterday, so it was all a bit new in qualifying, and so happy with fourth, definitely. So we'll see what we can do.
Now, with these Caterham Academy cars, they're of course sort of more of an entry level as far as Caterham racing is concerned, or by and large. How much room is there for setting the cars up?
I think, to be honest, the biggest change is really how you flat floor the car and the suspension geometry and the rake. So that really does make a difference. So you can have a little bit of a play. There isn't a huge amount you can do, but it does impact the handling of the car, and it's down to your preference. So yeah.
Excellent. Best of luck out there, Gareth. The gate is now open. The cars are now heading to the field. I'll throw it back to Scott in the commentary box for race number 5 of the LoveCars Caterham Academy.
The next race of Caterham Motorsport weekend here, and it's now time for the second group, as you mentioned, of the Caterham Academy. Of course, it's now the white group's turn to take to the track for their first of 2 championship scoring races for their final round of 2021. So we had some close connotations in the first race for the green group. The white group, Chris, is looking even more closer and trickier than that. He's working out some of Simon's connotations. From what we can work out in this first race, essentially, this is all really this is getting very close between Charlie Lower and Harry George, who, quite fittingly, are both on the front row of the grid, again, in terms of championship contenders. So these two really have been going at it hammer and tongs all season. But it's really going to come down mostly to who can finish ahead of the other, and also who does or doesn't pinch the fastest lap, because literally they're that close on drop scores, just 2 points between them. William James a further point back, but of course it could all come down to count back in terms of results, and particularly if wins and second places come to mix, it literally could be either person's game depending on how the other finishes and what they've got to fall back on.
Yep, there's only so much you can control, isn't there? So I'm sure they are both going to be looking to win the race, and then they can't do any more than that. Certainly win it with the fastest lap. But it's really good to see that the fast guys are being at the top there. So we're really treated to seeing the battle happening just at the front of the grid, which is really nice to see. And again, there's been some really good battling through this whole season for this for the group, and it's always nice to see the 2 full grids of Caterham Academy cars, because we can't fit them all on one grid basically.
Yeah, Caterham Academy, the basis of it is that you get a fresh group of drivers coming through, all of which have never held a racing licence before at all in their lifetime. So that's the stipulation. You can't have ever raced anything in your life, any kind of competition licence. Everyone who goes to the Caterham Academy are all bona fide novice drivers, all off the streets, and all get turned to bona fide racing drivers. We'll continue that point in a second because we have the grid on the screen. So the main championship contenders are quite fittingly all on the front together. So it's Harry George and Charlie Lower on the front row of the grid. William James and Gareth Lucas then come next on row 2. Charles Perry and Mark Januszewski are then on the 3rd row of the grid, ahead of Neil Perry and Tom Noakes on the 4th row, and then it's followed by Benja Headley, and then 10th place man James Moon, who rounds out the top 10 starters for the white group of the Caterham Academy. Then moving forwards to row 6, we see Mike Banton and Richard J. Ainscough, or Rocco as he's known, so Rocco Ainscough, who's the relative of former 420 racer, as high as that, Richard Ainscough, runs in the family. Simon Patel and Louise Deason then come next on the 7th row, 13th and 14th place. Julian Roebuck starts 15th alongside Augustin Sayrak. And then we've got the rest of the field coming through on the grid. It's row 9 for Richard Lawrence and Ray Radford. And rounding out the top 20, we've got Chris Roberts and Graham Walker. And followed then we've got Lyndon Arnold, Alan Bateman and David Saxby to create a 23 car grid for the white group of the LoveCars Caterham Academy Championship. And just continue the point we made on the Caterham Academy drivers. So any novice drivers that come through the Caterham Academy, they need to get split up into 2 groups, a green group and a white group, because as Chris rightly said, there's usually so many drivers on the Caterham Academy group that there's collectively there's not space to put them all onto one grid. So they split them off into green and to white group. They race respectively in their own championships, and then they come together. Usually, all the drivers in both groups will graduate together. Usually, all move up together into the Roadsport Championship. But then, through the process of making themselves into racing drivers, they then either buy a kit that they can build the car themselves, or they can have a car pre-built, which costs a couple of grand more in the package, and they can then have that built and looked after by Caterham themselves. What they then do is they then have a collective do the ARDS test, which is their racing driver test to get their racing license, their inter-club racing license to go racing. They then do a track and test day, a handling day, a drift day, all to kind of learn the basics of the car, how to use the basic setup parameters, how to get a feel for it on the circuit, how to drive it, how to handle it in certain corners, and then start them off in gently competitive competition. I say gently, rather lightly I suppose, is that they get them to put them on a competitive sprint, which is simply just against the clock, one car each on the course, and then once they complete the sprint, which they get points for towards the championship, they then go on to the race circuits. And they've been to so far some quite decent circuits, including of all places the Silver Grand Prix circuit, which would have been quite an experience, Chris. In your first racing, you're on the same circuit that just probably weeks after Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, George Russell and co. have all been battling on in the pinnacle of motorsport, and they're getting to live out, potentially for them, a dream, which is racing exactly the same circuit that they did just a few weeks, give or take, before or after.
It took me 8 years to get to drive and race on the Grand Prix circuit, so yeah, they got to do it in their first race. What an excellent thing. And you've gone through what they kind of go through as part of the academy, but the most important bit is they all go through it together, and that's why we build these bonds in these early years, and it's really nice to see. And they will be racing each other now for the next, maybe their 8 years will still them racing. You mentioned Rocco Ainscough. I raced against Richard Ainscough, and he was in from my track sport year onwards, as it was then. It's 270 now. That shows how old I am, doesn't it? Getting on a bit now, Scott.
But it's not age, it's just experience, Chris. You should know that. But even so, yes, it's the great thing you do tend to see when you look at the previous academy groups. You will see essentially class of insert year those kind of groups of drivers, they tend to form like a collective group of drivers, and they do generally move up and race against each other collectively as a group up the stages together, because they not only form friendships, but they just enjoy racing against each other, and they can trust each other, which is the great thing, which provides really good close racing consistently across the Caterham spectrum. So, green flag will be at the back of the grid any second now. The 5-second ball will go up, and a second of 4 Caterham Academy races for the weekend. The first for the white group is set to get underway. 5-second ball is up on the gantry. Let's get another championship battle conclusion underway. It's going to be Harry George versus Charlie Lowe on the front row of the grid. Great launch from Charlie Lowe from the front row. Brilliant launch from the outside of the front of the grid. It's completely hoodwinked Harry George, and also charging past looks to William James. Up the inside also looks to the 43 of Gareth Lucas. Into the right hand, which as they go, running wide is 97, James Moon. He's going to the moon, off onto the grass. A couple more cars running wide. Everyone's getting a little bit loose, cold tyres, just trying to find their way through the grip levels at Richie's corner after qualifying this morning. But it is Charlie Lowe who leads all over the place, and oversteering wide there was William James, but he just about holds on. But the one that really lost that was Harry George from pole position. That inside the front row for the first couple of races we've had today, not necessarily the place to be, being on pole position. The outside of the front row seems to be cleaner and give you much better starts and much better grip.
It's just a bit unlucky, that grid spot, and he certainly looked like he was going to get really swallowed up by the field, but he recovered it back, and now he's coming back down the inside there back into second place, so exactly where he needs to be. So he'll put that behind him. He's got to get his head on, and he's got to get going to chase down the lead.
You think it's something like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, wouldn't you? But it's actually 2:45, so quite a hazy October, sort of autumnal Norfolk afternoon here at Snetterton. It's wonderful weather conditions though. Great to see them racing in the dry, particularly in this part of the time of the year, because I think you remember last year's memories of racing at Snetterton. Wasn't quite dry, it was quite much wetter, and that was just before we went into the forcible hibernation, shall we say, for
whatever
the
opposite of dry was what Snetterton was last year.
I remember there's a picture in the yearbook for the BOCC, and there's a great picture that we captioned it, Caterham's in the mist rather than the Gorillas in the mist, because there was so much spray and water. I think it was the 310R race, and there was so much standing water you could barely make out the Caterham's bar there. Well, they didn't have headlights for 310R, so it was that difficult, and I even had to take my hat off to those who raced that day. It was absolutely incredible. Anyway, that was then. This is now 12 months later, and the leaders are making their way up towards the bomb hole for the first time. That's Gareth Lucas, as he names himself, the Apex Predator, as he comes up through the right-hander. Trying to live up to that name by trying taking some clean apexes all the way through. Now, Harry George has really moved his way back into second place, so he's not taking too long after that bad start, and now he's immediately putting Harry George under pressure. So let's just remind ourselves of the connotations from Simon Lambert, Chief Medical Officer at Caterham. So again, he reminds us, a win for Charlie Lowe would mean, on Saturday, needs Harry leaving second and fastest lap to keep his title fight alive. But if the two are fighting for the lead, which they are now already, in both races, Charlie needs to win at least one of them. He can't afford to follow Harry home. Well, that's essentially what Charlie is doing, exactly what he needs to, which is staying ahead of Harry here. He needs to make sure we can hold on to him, but he's got to do that now, Chris, for the next 17.5 minutes. As we both know with Caterham racing, that ain't easy.
Especially around Snetterton, yeah, you've got these two long straights, and the academies haven't got the engine power, and they've slightly down on that power to be able to punch their way through the air. So we're absolutely going to see that. So there's no point trying to protect your lead for the entire race. There are times when you must sort of sit back and look at the bigger pictures. We can see George is actually going down the inside, so he does want to be ahead coming down into the Agostini hairpin, and he's managed to make that move stick.
Nice clean pass up the inside, under brakes. There was no squeeze into the inside liner, trying to edge him out onto the road, into the grass. It was simply a case of, look, you've got the move, I'll try and get you back. And arguably, there is plenty of time left in the race. We've still got 3/4 of it left to go. So, again, maybe the two of them, even though they're in a championship battle, do they call a temporary truce and pull away? It'd be quite unthinkable, given the fact they're the two main rivals. But then again, you've also got to think about the fact that William James, who's only a point behind Harry George on drop scores, and 3 points in total behind Charlie Lowe, the championship leader, they're going to think about essentially, do they want to try and make it just a one-on-one? Do they want to make it a three-way fight between them? That's the key thing. But I think at this point, you've probably experienced, when you have a driver in front of you, you don't necessarily want to work together with him. You want to beat him.
You absolutely do want to beat them. You'll get different drivers with different personalities. You see another move up the inside here, not actually going to come off that time. But you have the different personalities of the drivers. Some are thinkers, some are living, like corner by corner. And so, especially in the academy years, they're developing what they are as a driver. And I think we'll see that later on today, whether they've got 15 minutes of this race. So nothing they do now is actually going to be, it's going to determine the outcome.
Yeah, there's lock up there from, just to mention, I think it was Julian Roebuck. He started back in 15th place, but he's up to 12th. So I also saw there a shot of, I think it was possibly, if I look at Richard Lawrence, I think he's R64 there, who had the mint-coloured Caterham. Down the pit straight we go. Possible change on for second because Charlie Lowe has pulled the gap out now. William James is the man on the move. We talked about not to count him out, and he's certainly put himself latched onto the rear of Harry George's car as they turn in through Riches again on the third lap of racing. The fastest lap of the race, the first proper flying lap, because usually the first lap doesn't really count because you're starting from a grid. Representation of what pace is like once they complete the second lap, as again Shiloh just leaves the door open a little bit close. That's a bit of a, it's intentional or not, it's a bit of a teaser. Harry George thinking, right, you leave the door open, are you not? And that uncertainty can breed into losing time, not just to the car in front, because you're thinking, well, do I make a move, don't I? And indecision can also mean that the cars behind can pounce on that and think, right, he's sort of dwindling around wondering what to do, and he could try and pinch a move down the inside somewhere and make the move stick if he can. He's trying to get into the hairpin. Agostini is lower again, just left his inside line a little bit too loose, and that was close between the two of them, almost touching between wheels, but good racecraft they're learning here between the two, and again it's close between the front as we like it to be, but it's getting a bit sort of, if you're going to make moves, you either got to try and calculate it and make it stick, and not make tentative moves like that and thinking where you could either, if it's a 50-50 chance where it works or not, you've got to try the info caution to the wind, or sit there and calculate it like you mentioned. There are different driving styles at play here.
Yeah, definitely. Charlie Lowe leaving the inside open into Agostini, has done on the last 2 laps. Didn't actually let the pass complete that time, but as we've said before, that just allows cars behind to catch up, and we've seen actually William James, he's actually looking the most threatening at the moment, isn't he? He's looking like he's going to make a move down into this complex coming under the bridge here. It's quite a daunting place to be for a driver here, but it's great fun when it all comes together. But it's, the order remains the same. Now, Harry George has now made it into the lead, so he has made that move stick, and will we see Charlie Lowe now have to protect himself from William behind?
And I'd say keep an eye on Gareth Lucas too. He's in 4th place, 1.7 seconds back, and not that far away from the cars behind. We've got cars in front of him in the top 3. Good to see further back, we've got quite a nice little battle pack forming here towards the tail of the field. Look and see who that's involving. That's being led by 77, which is Lyndon Arnold, and that is a scrap that's going on for 16 down the back, pretty much the back of the field. So this is the beauty about Caterham Academy, is that literally, regardless of what your speed level is, there is always some down the race. So these guys, for whatever reason, don't care where they are, right? They just enjoy themselves on track and having fun and enjoying the experience. This is their last weekend as academy drivers, so they're just out there. If while they're not in the championship fight, there might be little personal championship battles within the table, trying to get the 22nd spot or break into the top 20, or trying to finish ahead of a particular driver if there's a friendly rivalry going on. These guys and girls all love it because they love the experience of racing with the friends they've made, just enjoying it, being out on track racing together, and that is friendships. Not only means that they stay friends, that they move up together in the races, but also it just breeds friendships in general, and they remember it, and you always know that they can trust them when they're racing against them on track, regardless of what level locations they find themselves in.
If you ever come to one of our races live, and we encourage everyone to do that, it's really great to watch the Caterhams as they're going around in live. It's great to go and see them in Parc Ferme because everyone's chatting and there's all that liveliness going on because everyone's had an epic battles. They're not necessarily out front, it doesn't matter. They're all having fun and their families are all involved as well. So definitely make sure you make your way over to Parc Ferme to see some of that happening. It's quite entertaining.
You should be around when the social evenings happen. It gets just as frantic. Anyway, leaders have gone through. It was quite close. You can see 15,000 of a second between Harry George and Charlie Lowe. This battle's still going on between Lyndon Arnold. He's battling away with the 51 of Ray Radford up the inside. He goes up the inside. This is for, okay, remember, as it only is for 16th place downwards. But again, these guys literally would say, who cares? It's just a great battle between 6-7 cars at the back of the field, and they're having a mega scrap. They're thinking, lead battle, forget about that. There's all sorts going on here. Louise Deason up the inside. She gets past, looks like Lyndon. Both Ray Radford and Lee Easter got past Lyndon Arnold. Looks like Roberts is in there too as well. Back with our leaders. I was quite enjoying that. Back with our leaders, we've got Charlie Lowe ahead of Harry George with William James in there as well. And then they've just pulled away a couple of seconds now from Gareth Lucas. The top 3 all together as they turn their way back through Coram. This is on lap 4. Still got 11 minutes to go in this race on the clock. So the timing is frozen a little bit. Now we've still got 11 minutes to go. So fastest lap of the race. It's with Harry George at the moment, so we'll work out in terms of connotations what that means in a moment's time. A couple of cars running a little wide there. 88 is Augustin Seyrac. he's now under threat from Lindenau. So this is interesting. So now Lindenau has lost another place now. So it's a good pace that he had a couple of laps ago within that pack. He's now losing it in these next couple of laps, and it can be just momentum. Literally, you build up a rhythm, one small slip, and it takes about another lap or two to get that momentum back. And it's not always easy, but in particular, it's definitely not easy. It's not always easy, that easy to do, particularly when your car's as tricky on the limit as it is as one of these Caterhams.
Now, we mentioned earlier how I'm watching these racing at Knock Hill, and again just seeing this rear of the end battle, but actually the battle lasts longer nowadays because they're all under control, and it makes it harder to overtake. It's only going to get harder as they go up through the steps, but it's really good to see these battles deep in the field.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see plenty more of them, against regardless of where they find themselves in the pack all the way through. There is Alan Baker. Alan is currently at the moment in 22nd place, but again, he won't care about that. He just cares about the fact the experience and the fact that he's involved in the fight as well. Speaking of fights, here's this 4-car battle now, because Gareth Lucas has recaught the top 3. Now it is a leading quartet back into Oggies now for the 5th time. Lap 5 of this first of 2 point scoring races to decide the LoveCars Caterham Academy white group. The green group have had their first races today, and they'll be back tomorrow, as will these guys. There's the gap, top 4, then we wait, then 5th and 6th come through, and it's now been a change around. So Mark Janaszewski's got past Giles Perry, but they're going to go wheel to wheel here. Perry darts out, pulls himself alongside Janaszewski, and they go side by side. Perry's got the better momentum, and through he will go. Meanwhile, Charlie Lower is back in front then, so Lower maintains the place ahead of George. There's William James in 3rd and Gareth Lucas in 4th. We've got now Giles Perry up to 5th, Janaszewski 6th, so he's retaken that position now after he was passed earlier in the lap. 7th place there is Neil Perry. I'm not sure if there's a relation between the two, but simply just surname, a coincidence to have the same surname. Michael Banton 9th, then you've then got Simon Patel in 9th place. Michael Banton 8th, Simon Patel 9th, and Ben Headley came to the weekend 5th on drop scores in points, back down in 10th place and not having the greatest run so far for him in this first race. Here come the leaders, side by side for 2nd and 3rd. This is not really what Harry George needs. He needs to keep Charlie Lowe in his grasp here. He's trying to go on the attack here to defend. This is all he can do at this point in time. He's basically choosing to attack Charlie Lowe as best he can. It's all you can do to put pressure on the car in front to get them to hurry up and try and do something to prevent any kind of attack from the guy behind him, to put him off if you're already trying to get past the car in front and get on make a move. So he's really in a bit of a catch-22 situation here. He's got to keep literally one eye on Charlie Lower in front of him and one eye in his mirror looking behind him, William James, and that is the hardest thing to do, particularly if you're in a tight championship battle and these three are separated by 3 points on drop scores. I would not want to be Harry in this situation. The guy in the middle of these 3 is not the place I would want to be in this battle so far.
Again, we see Harry there squeezing down the inside with just a hint of a gap, and he's made it stick down into Agostini. But you're right, it is the hardest thing to do, is to manage when you're in the middle of a sandwich. It's not the most comfortable place to be, and you've got to manage it all. We've seen Charlie Lowe a couple of times, though, break that little gap, and actually it's been Harry George that has had the pressure from behind. We've seen it reverse, though, immediately. So these long straights doing their job and actually stirring things up. But with Lucas coming to join the battle as well, sometimes 4 cars in a battle actually causes a bit of third, a little bit more nervous, and we've seen Lucas getting back involved in those battles a bit more heavily, but still it's these front 2 that just managed to make that little bit extra each time, and they've sort of the majority of the laps they've led.
Just going back to Simon's connotations, he did say that Charlie will need to win at least one of these races. He can't afford to follow Harry home, so he's got himself back in front now. So Charlie, and what this needs now is that Harry needs second in the fastest lap in order to keep the time place alive. At the moment, he has the fastest lap of the race, and he is currently now second behind Charlie, so it does keep his title hopes alive. In some cases, essentially, it really matters to what these 2 do, what order they finish in, and also who does or doesn't have that fastest lap. That's going to be really crucial. But at the moment, even though Charlie is leading the race, Harry's second and has that fastest lap to keep it that close, going through the connotations of the count back on championship scores on drop points. It's quite a complicated thing to do at the end of the season, particularly when you have to start factoring in drop scores. But it really does make it very tight towards the end. It makes it almost confusing, and I've owned that Snetterton with several championships myself as well, so I know exactly what it feels like for Simon Lambert and Co to have to work this out, because it's definitely, I know from experience, sometimes it really isn't easy to work it out at all.
No, absolutely not. And we've had several times where we've had the pregnant pause in Parc Fermé waiting to hear the results, and yeah, it can get very complicated, like you say, on countback with these drop scores. But really, like we always say, if you win the race and get fastest lap, there's nothing more you can do.
So looking further back here, this is the battle now for 5th place backwards now. This is behind the top 4. So this is now Mark Janezeski, who's been battling race long so far with, or for most of it, with Giles Perry. That's now brought Neil Perry, Michael Banton and Banton into the mix. Simon Patel is then a further 3 seconds back, and he himself is scrapping with Benja Headley, so watch out for them battling over 9th and 10th. So the 5-minute board has gone out, so for most of the drivers, so they'll be saying there's roughly about 5 minutes to go in this race, and there is 5 minutes to go. It ticks down to 5 minutes exactly now. So this battle. Again, look at the dimming light. It really doesn't look like, feel like it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It feels like it's later in the afternoon, like a summer, roughly 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. It's not 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
We've been treated to some great weather today here at Snetterton. It's been nice and warm earlier today, but like you say, we're later in the year, therefore the sun starts disappearing on us. But yeah, we've seen plenty of this, and the cool air actually makes the Caterhams go nice and fast as we come back to that lead group. Can you see now that Noah has actually gained that little gap? Remember last time I said we've seen it a couple of times. He's got that gap over Harry George. Harry George now going to have to work hard to try and close that gap. With 4 minutes to go, that, you know, he needs to be careful of that. Yeah,
he really is coming under massive pressure from William James, particularly when you look again that he's only on drop scores a point ahead of William James. He really needs to know he literally cannot afford to lose this place now. Even though he has fastest lap, he needs to stay in 2nd place or recatch and repass Charlie Lower to keep his title hopes alive. Otherwise, this is all right now will keep him in contention for tomorrow, according to the connotations that we've had through. So he needs to stay in 2nd place, and he can't lose the fastest lap of the race. He has it at the moment, 2 minutes 17.694. Last lap was a 2:17.9, and then but the fast lap is a 2:17.6. So he needs to put in some quite quick lap times with possibly some lap time there. I think someone's recovering from a spinner. That's Louise Deason's had a bit of a rotation. I think she was just saw her there recovering. I think possibly after a spin at Oggie's. She's carried on. She crossed the line last time in 21st place in her last complete lap, so she's got some work to do, possibly drop behind 22nd or even 23rd, I think. There is 74. That's Julian Roebuck, or as the number plate number stipulates, Grandpa. I'm not going to comment on his age at all because I don't know it, but he was saying, oh, a big lock up for Charlie Lowe. This could be crucial. Up the inside goes Harry George, up into the lead. Also into 2nd place has gone William James, and to 3rd has gone Gareth Lucas. So it's all changed. Now, I need to look at the car behind. Is that all change off camera there? But in the blink of an eye, we thought it was quite a lead of about 0.6 of a second. In the Mitchell corners, this whole race now and the connotations for the championship have completely turned on their head.
Yeah. One little lock-up is all it takes. He drifted wide into Agostini there. We've seen him a couple of times not make the most of his braking zone there. Harry George has had the better of him, and maybe he thought he could brake a little bit later, or maybe the back marker came into effect there. Either way, we have now got the situation where, like you say, Harry George is now out front with Williams there in 2nd, and he has a work to do to try and bring back that gap. 4 points is going to be crucial in this final battle.
Really is, and so particularly with the fastest lap point, of course, means that of course Harry George will get the win, and of course remember it's 25 points for the 25 points for win, 23 for 2nd, 22 for 3rd, 21 for 4th. And if it's the fastest lap point on top of that as well, that's 5 points that Harry George at the moment is taking out of Charlie Lower, which means that looking at the battle at the moment, he not only, as far as I can tell, I think, not only does he take was down by, but he also then surpasses Charlie 3, which means he takes the championship over. I'm trying to work it out in my head what was going on. He's got a minute and a half to go or so to come across and start the last lap of the race. Now, William James just stole the fast lap of the race at 2:16.9, so it's gone back again, and he's going for a lead, rounding out to the Harry George. Back into 3rd place has gone Charlie Lower. I don't think he used to even factor this in. William James is in there. And Gareth Lucas, who, bear in mind, is in 7th in the points. He's in there just for the fun of it. William James goes down the outside. He's back up the inside of Harry George. Side by side, they're both back into the league group, and now they're side by side for belief. The two championship contenders literally now are wheel to wheel again, but neither of them have the fast lap of the race. So at this point in time, I think if Harry can't get the fast lap back again, it might, and I say this with the biggest provision in the world, might put Charlie into potential possible championship winning mode, but we can't confirm that at all. We have to wait for this final race to go. Essentially, what Harry's to do, he's got to get past Charlie to give him any chance of staying on, to hold on to this potential chance for the title.
Interesting, Harry did go for like we've done before. He's sitting behind him, going out onto the bench. Is he going to be brave and sit behind him and wait for that final corner, or is he going to make a move down this long final straight? As we go through Oggies, there's only a few corners left. We're on definitely on our last lap. We've got a rotation, number 20 there down at Agostini.
That's Mark Janicki, who was in battling for 5th with Giles Perry, but he's dropped down. And look at the way Harry George threw that car into the corner, and also there, look, William James was so sideways on the exit there through Williams' corner, trying to stay onto the tail of Gareth Lucas. Now, I'm not sure how close, if he was close enough to hold on, not quite in return to get close enough there. He might get a possible chance to I think he'll be close enough to stay close to Brundle Nelson, but maybe the run down the pit straight could be a typical case for a photo finish between these two. He's close enough to make that happen. Out of the right-hander at Nelson, up towards the bomb hole, nose to tail. Arguably, essentially, Harry has to make this move, otherwise we possibly think there is a small provisional chance it could be Charlie's title. He's having a look up the inside of the corner. He knows he has to be right under his roll case to stay there. Up through Coram for the final time into Murray's. These two are going to be nose to tail. Is Charlie going to make a second a bit too hot into the corner? Yes, he sort of has. He has. He's gone over the curve, and it might be the chance to Harry. He was shift up the inside line to get through on the outside line. He's done it. He's got through. Harry George gets there. It's not over yet. Charlie side by side towards the line, and Harry George, to keep his title hopes alive, has done it. He's just taken Charlie lower on the final corner, and he beats him by 1.5 tenths of a second. Harry George, I can't stress that enough. He needed to do that, and he's so. It looked as though initially going to the final corner, Charlie was going to take a little bit too much speed. He did. They were so focused on the cars behind. There's more shenanigans going on behind with cars going every which way. That is Noakes, Moon's in there as well. Looks like Ainscoe and possibly Patel in there as well. Some battles going on. But that final battle towards the end, as they come up towards the checkered flag, I think what did it for Harry, there was two things that Charlie Lower did. One, he went a little bit too deep, a little bit too wide into the final corner at Murray's, and then two, it looked like he just snatched the wrong gear or just didn't hit the shift as quick enough as he wanted to, and that just gave Harry in front, and then even though he got back into the slipstream, it wasn't enough for Charlie to get past and beat him at the line. I think Harry George relieved person in the paddock tonight, I think, for picking up that win, because he knew essentially from his head, unless he was told or not, essentially that needed to happen, and he got it done, but only just.
Yeah, we saw Lower. I was going to congratulate him on taking so much speed into the final corner there, but it just turned out to be a tickle too much, and he had a sideways moment on the exit, which meant that Lower didn't get on the power quite as soon as George, and it ended up being quite an easy move. Like you say, there was a bit of a slipstream, but I think he had lost it at that stage. But what a great finale to this race.
What a great finale we're going to get tomorrow for the championship, particularly with how close it could be. Last few cars coming across the line to finish up. We had that great battle towards the back as the last few stragglers from that scrap come across the line. The likes of Walker, Louise Deason after her spin, and also David Saxby in car number 6. Excellent stuff from the Caterham Academy. And again, we stress this, it's only their first season of racing, but some of the race cars, some of the battles that you see, you'd never think it. It's fantastic stuff between the guys.
Yeah, the difference in the beginning and the end of the season is awesome, and it just leads to a really nice build-up for road. We've got the Autumn Trophy race coming up tomorrow, obviously. Definitely tune in for that, because this is the first time that you all get to race together, and that's always an exciting moment as well.
First time they get to race together in terms of being on one grid in one, technically one competition together, because they did race together on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, but that was within their classes on track together, so we'll watch out for that. So, after an exhausting finish to the white group for the LoveCars Caterham Academy, Harry George crucially gets it when he absolutely needed to keep his title hopes alive. He just beats Charlie Lower by 1.5 for Gareth Lucas 3rd, William James 4th, then the Perrys, Giles and Neil, followed by Michael Banton, Benja Headley, Mark Janicki and Simon Patel, then Tom Noakes, James Moon, Rocco Ainscoe, Julian Robot, Augustin Sayrak, Richard Lawrence, Lyndon Arnold, Chris Roberts, Alan Bateman and Ray Radford round up the top 20, and then Graham Walker, Louise Deason and David Saxby. Once again, all 23 started, all 23 made it home, which is great to see. also goes to William James. That's another Caterham race wrapped up. Now time for our next race on the timetable. Back over to Chris Buxton over in the assembly area. So apologies for the very small sort of audio issue there. We'll get that fixed as quickly as possible. But we are now leading in to our next race of the weekend, our next Caterham action of the race. It's now for the middle ground, the Coming of Age Championship, as some people call it. This is the Motul Caterham 7 270R Championship. This is the third step on the 5-step ladder of the Caterham Motorsport roster, and this is where the cars have had their second set of upgrades after leaving Academy and Roadsport. I think we can hear now from some of the drivers, and hopefully to Chris Buxton, who's going to have a chat with a couple of our drivers ahead of the weekend.
Welcome back to the holding area as we get ready for race number 6, the Motul Caterham 270R Championship. On pole position is car number 34, Blair McConaughey. You've got to be quite happy with the qualifying this time.
Definitely happy with the qualifying. It's a little bit of luck when you go around here. Definitely very dependent on the toe. I think my fastest lap was right at the end, and I just caught Ryan Errol. So perfect timing. Otherwise, I could have been a bit further down the grid, so I'm quite happy.
So how long have you been in the Caterham ladder for now?
This is the third year. So started 2019 Academy, worked all the way through, and really enjoying 270 so far.
Awesome. Best of luck out there, Blair, as we're already getting shuffled away. We'll hand back over to Scott Woodwis in the commentary box.
Thank you, Chris Buxton. As the cars, you see, now onto the assembly, onto the grid for their first races of the weekend. The Motul Caterham 7 270R Championship still looking like it's going the way of the leader. Blair McConaughey will try and extend his current points lead on drop scores to 19 points. Place man Carl Jones, and Harry Ayres a further 5 points back on 170 in third. So I know Chris Hutchison's still looking on the top points table with me in terms of looking at where they are on the grid. Now Blair McConaughey is going to be starting on pole for this race. He's got Alan Curtis coming to the weekend, is 11th in points, so he's quite a decent start to his one of his strongest of the season to date. But he's got some of his other key rivals behind. Carl, his two main rivals are sat right behind him on the second row of the grid. So grid position wise, in terms of his location, is a benefit. But we see in the first few races of this weekend, not just in Caterham but everywhere else, that inside run on pole position is not always the strongest place to be, is it? Because you've seen the guys on the outside line better, cleaner starts compared to those who started on pole. So potentially could this be possibly advantage Alan Curtis? Work that out in a second because we're going to go to the grid. So Blair McConaughey and Alan Curtis start on the front row of the grid together. Championship leader Blair McConaughey on pole. His two main rivals, Carl Jones and Harry Ayres, then come next on the second row of the grid. Stephen Lyle, who's been quite strong this season and trying to get his first win, he goes to 5th, starts alongside Wes Payne in 6th in his pearlescent coloured car. It's always one to watch out for. Demetrius Melas back on form, 7th place for him. Chris Ephraimidis getting stronger, starting 8th. But it's David Morgan and Angus McLean who round up the top 10 for this first 270R race. Back to row 6, we see Fraser Jones, so he'll start alongside Oliver Smith in 11th and 12th respectively. 7th row of the grid sees Paul Herndon, and he'll line up alongside John Cox in 13th and 14th places respectively. Row 8 will then see Tim Steele and car 53 alongside James Cameron, who starts in 16th place. He's got a bit of a titanic task for him to try and go back up through the order from the 8th row of the grid. Darryl Cresswell and Nick Allbridge will start at the 9th row of the grid, and then rounding up the top 10, top 20, Peter on row 10. And then we have the rest of the grid coming through. It's quite a hefty grid of 26 270Rs on the grid. Nice entry for this weekend. Ryan Errol and Richard Hall will have some work to do from the 11th row of the grid. Back to row 12 where we see Roger Gaunt and Stefano Mara. And then Duncan Cook and Dan Clayfan will round off the 26 car starting grid for our first 270R action of the weekend. So let's finally bring you at that point. Blair McConaughey on pole. But again, we'll reiterate, that front row rank, particularly the inside line on pole position, hasn't been the strongest in terms of starts. Not been totally flawed, but it has been the point we've seen the cars on the outside line have been getting the better and cleaner starts. So that's a bit surprising, I think, but it's quite interesting to point that it's been quite consistent in the first few races that we've seen.
Yeah, let's see whether Blair can break that trend, whether it was the drivers that have all been on pole position who haven't quite managed to get off the line, or maybe it is a bit slippier, like you say, in that slightly a dustier area. But as we go through the race weekend, that will start improving anyway as we get more and more starts going through. But certainly Blair's been a class of this year, hasn't he? He's run away with a couple of races, which is very unusual in Caterham circles, but equally there's other people around him doing some really good things. We've got Lyle coming in. He didn't do the opening rounds, but ever since he has absolutely injected himself there at the front of the grid. Alan Curtis, what an excellent result to be on the front row of the grid. He, I think, would be the first person to say he wasn't expecting that this weekend. So what can he do? He's not in the championship hunt. Can he just go and run away with this because the others are all concentrating on each other? So yeah, and it's just been good to see them all there. Harry Aird putting in some brilliant performances and has some ultimate pace, but maybe has had some unfortunate races as we've gone through the year. To see him sort of slipping into third place, but he's always there or thereabouts, and he's certainly in the mix today.
Absolutely, and the good thing is with looking at where Alan Curtis, actually, his best result of the season, ironically, has been, it's been a 6th place finish, so he's actually starting higher than he's ever finished in a race, which is quite interesting. So it's a bit of dizzying heights for him on the front row of the grid, so a bit of unknown territory for him in terms of trying to work that out, thinking, am I used to being with no cars around me? But apart from looking ahead of me, he's used to cars all around him rather than just having cars behind him and alongside rather than in front. So new experience for him. He'll be enjoying it, but at the same time he'll be quite nervous as well at the same time.
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting thing. You know, if you are in the mid-pack all the time, your start feels very lucky enough to start at the front all the time. You're never used to seeing, you have an empty track in front of you or maybe just one or two things to deal with. But if you're deep in the pack all the time, it'll be a very unusual being up there up front, and I'm sure he's one that he will look to repeat many times.
Well, hopefully he can try and make the most of his high up starting spot. As you say, he comes into the weekend in terms of his points on drop scores, 11th with 104, so got some time to make up. Quick profile of the 270R race cars. We said this is a second evolution, or second stage evolution of the original Academy car. So they get all the upgrades from all the upgrades they've already had from Roadsport, which is the Avon ZZS tyres and the rear anti-roll bar. The two key differences you'll see are the visual changes, because not only do they also get stiffer front springs and dampers, a wider track front suspension, they also get at the same time the removal of the windscreen and the lights, and that starts to turn it. You can reattach them, and cars can be made road legal again with adding a number plate and windscreen and lights, but for racing purposes they're taken off, and it starts to make the car a bit more race car like in terms of what it feels like, because the Roadsport and Academy cars still have number plates on them, headlights, windscreens. These start to look a bit more like proper purpose built race cars, even though they are originally an Academy car when they start off. And a lot of people have said is that once you've had 2 seasons, one season to literally get to starting racing, second to get to grips with the upgrades and to get used to the circuits again, start to bed yourself back in again. This third season in 270Rs is where you start to learn to use everything you've learned in the first 2 years and start developing. You're developing further, find your pace, find your competitors. This is where you really start to find your form and find where you sit in the ranking of Caterham racing, whether you're a front runner, a mid pack, or someone who just enjoys running at the rear. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's nearly getting everyone lined up on the grid now, so let's see who's learnt how to do their starts. Can Blair break the curse of the pole position today, and can he get off the line well?
Let's see then. Let's see if the inside ride is clear enough to make it happen. 5-second board goes up, or can Alan Curtis spring a surprise here and we get the jump down to turn 1? Blair will want to make that happen. He wants to get a clean run and the lead down towards Ritchie's. See if we can hold on to it. Red lights are on, and this time he has broken the curse. It's a good start from the inside from pole. So he's got the lead. He should have the whole shot down towards turn 1, but he's immediately under pressure from Carl Jones in the black car with the green roll bar. There it is, on dance to the outside line into Ritchie's for the first time, and poor Alan Curtis has got absolutely swamped, bless him, into the right hand of Ritchie's corner. Got to about 5th or 6th position he's been shuffled back to. I think Ayres got past him, Jones has got past him, whereas Payne's got past him as well. So he didn't quite get the start he was hoping for, but he's kept himself roughly in that sort of leading group. He's not too far away. He's still there about 6th or 7th place, which is not too bad a start for him for that front row. Little tag up there between 31 and 71. That was 31 was John Cox and Oliver Smith are getting a bit too close to each other there as they turn in through Palmer for the first time. So, 2 cars making contact. One car's gone around in the background as well. Several cars off onto the grass. We can't work out all of them, but couldn't quite also identify the car that where that all started with the car going around, but leaders seem pretty much unscathed. There's a hole in the field. Right, 61's involved in one of them. That's damaged suspension on that car, so that's out, I'm afraid. That is 61 is 61. So who was 61? That one, forgive me, look on the screen because it wasn't on the championship points table. 61, I think that's Angus McLean. I think he's an invitation driver, so he's invisible for points. So unfortunately, Angus, I'm afraid, is out of this race by the looks of things with broken suspension. Looking here at 14 or 56. 14 is 56. There was so much happened in that sequence. You're trying to work out who's where. So it's Fraser Jones, David Morgan who are scrapping over position there. But that sort of skirmish just behind the leaders has created quite a hole in the field. That's already created the lead gap, the lead group of 4 or 5 cars. Everyone else who's now going to try and fill that gap has got it will spread out quite a lot. And that's what can happen in the first lap of an incident like that. It spreads out the field, and also what not for much longer it won't do, because out the window I can see yellow flags around, and the first appearance of the RunYourFeet.com safety car means all those gaps are going to be completely shrunk down, and the rest is going to be neutralised back to single file and brought to a premature standstill whilst we get to collect up some of the cars that have been damaged in that incident.
Yeah, absolutely. It all kicked off there, didn't it, Scott? But the championship contenders did all get through, so they'll be happy that they are out front of that field. But yes, everything now will come back together again behind the safety car, and we'll effectively have a restart once that safety car pulls. The 13 car sort of stranded out on track, and that's why we've got that safety car. Marshall Dare just checking that the driver's okay, and it all looks good.
So the RunYourFeet.com Jaguar BRSCC safety car makes its way out onto the circuit to pick up the pack, and as it makes its way round towards the Wilson hairpin, it does indeed pick up the leader in.
So interesting, we've got Lyle showing in front behind the safety car with Jones and McConaughey there in third. So there was a bit of a shake-up somewhere, looked like maybe around Coram, because I thought McConaughey went over the line, in the lead still, but I guess there was a bit of a shake-up there.
Either that, or possibly it's just a small glitch in TSL timing, because I think there we go. Yes, Steve Lyle did take the lead, in fact, so there was a bit of a shake-up that might have happened possibly on the run down the back straight. I think because there was a bit of shuffle around off of the right.
Williams?
Right-hander Williams, yes. I'm trying to press what happened for a second. Right-hander at Williams, which then meant that both Stephen Lyle and Carl Jones were able to power past Blair McConnell and get through. Harry Ayre is still fourth, and there was that gap of back to fifth with Wes Payne on his own, and then everyone else, and the gap's sort of be stick downwards, and looks like the skirmish has been so disruptive, we're going to have to throw the red flag out and actually stop the race to get the cars cleared up that were involved in that. What we can try and work out is who was involved in that roughly. And usually what the game I like to play is, it's not really a game, but what you play is spot the cars to go tumbling down the timing string, which is two of which they have gone tumbling down are Angus McLean in car 61, and the
Cook was the other car we saw.
Cook was the other car, that was number 13, so I'll get the first name for that in a second. 13 was Duncan Cook, who started on the back row, 25th position.
So normally what happens with the red flag, Scott, is they all come around to the grid, and we've only completed less than one lap when that all kicked off, or rather there'd likely be a complete restart. So they'll reset everyone on their normal and the starting grid that we saw before. So we'll go back to that position, and we're likely to see Alan back to his second place. So people that are a bit upset with that. So Lyle, who was, as we see, leading at the moment, he will actually have to go back to his sixth place. He had made a great start, hadn't he? So there'll be winners and losers in that, but effectively we will get to restart that race afresh.
Yeah, I think the driver that gets the biggest reprieve from that, he was that not as good start for him, and that can be down to possibly not necessarily race starting experience, but not being experienced of starting as high as that on the grid around arguably more experienced and faster starters in the pack amongst him. That's what got him caught in the skirmish of being 67th place, and that actually pushed him down to the last car running in 24th position. So he lost 22 spots on that first lap as a result of getting caught up in all of that. He gets the biggest reprieve because he'll get back onto the front row of the grid again. The biggest one he will be cursing himself in terms of not being able to pick up the most places. Well, actually, there's two drivers, both who picked up 12 positions each from the start, and that's first of all Dan Clayfan, who went from 26th on the grid from the back of the field to 14th, and also most impressively as well from 18th to 6th went Nick Allbone. So, and that's purely a consequence of picking the way through what happened, and basically almost like Days of Thunder style, for working their way through the gaps and kind of keeping out of all the trouble that's going on and just picking your way through. So those two will temporarily sort of hear us thinking, I've made it through, and all of a sudden they go, oh, race has stopped now, so I've got to go and do it again, or hopefully without any drama kicking off in front of me.
It's interesting psychology as well. You can see Alan's lost his rear wing, if that is Alan, I think it is. He lost his rear wing, so maybe he was caught, like you say, in that skirmish, and we see the car in front of him also just with a left rear wing. Interesting psychology. You've got to, as a driver now, reset. You've had all that adrenaline build and flow from the opening laps of your initial race, and they are stopping them halfway down the grid, and you can see that Blair's now been put back on that pole position, so it is looking like we're having a complete fresh restart, and Alan will have to come all the way through the field up to that position in position 2. But to try and reset yourself now, reset your brain, reset all your timers, everything, and work out how am I going to do that all again. For the people who had a bad start, great, they get a new opportunity to do well. But if you've just had a good start, you're absolutely gutted. But you've got to turn that off, forget all about it. That race never happened, and off you go again.
Yeah, just to confirm with the ruling is that if the race gets red flagged within the first 2 laps of the start, then by default the race is then restarted with exactly the same grid in which they originally formed up on from the results of qualifying, which does mean, as you absolutely rightly adhered to, Alan Curtis, who did drop down to 24th position, will get that second place back on the front row alongside Blair McConaughey. That front race patch is going to be blank for a bit because he's quite far back in the pack. Let's try and pick him through, but he will move up there and will work his way into second place before they get the racing back underway.
Well, there could be some edge. I'm not sure about the regulations, Scott, about if he was the cause of an accident. It could be that you don't get that same benefit presented. I'm not sure whether there's edge cases like that, but I still expect at this point to see him be pushed back through the field and get put to his second place on the grid. And hopefully this time he can get off the line well, and we can see him properly involved in that lead battle. But it certainly looks like Blair and Harry and Jones are just all going to be still involved in that. You know, all year we've seen them go hammer and tong, and with Lyle obviously new to Caterham's this year, done a bit of karting in his past, but absolutely brand new, running with DPR there, and I know he's thirsty for that podium spot.
I don't think he's taken a win so far this year, has he? Or since he's joined, has he? But he's come close. But he hasn't quite taken a win just yet, has he?
I think that's right. I think he's been on the podium, but he hasn't had that ultimate win, and certainly be on the search for that now if he can get.
Yeah, let's have a look. So Stephen Lyle, who is currently 4th in the points so far. I know he has taken 2 wins. Forgive me, he took 2 wins at Croft. So 2 wins because it's 25 points for a win. So he took 2 wins, double win at Croft. So he has managed to take it. So he essentially is kind of the in-form Manco, if you like, pace-wise coming into the weekend. So and looking pretty strong. And again, being in the lead there just proved that he's made some great strides and he's in the mix now. But as you say, got to do it again from 6th now after that mix-up. And we ruined the fact that the race stopped because, of course, he was leading when it came out. Yeah,
I've just disowned him of 2 wins, and what a great... he did have an absolutely stunning... I wasn't at Croft, so there comes Alan on the right there, just using a bit of the grass to get through to the front of the field. We also saw Rob Keogh earlier in the season, didn't we? But we haven't seen him he was always involved in that battle as well, but we haven't seen him towards the tail end of this season. And it's... Say this top 4. I'm looking forward to the race they're going to put on now. I see Kirsty there just telling everyone how long this race is going to be.
Simon from Caterham Motorsport just having a chat to all the drivers and just let them know what the race is going to be, and we can tell you the race on the restart. We haven't had confirmation of the race is going to be yet on TSL. We haven't had it reset to a race timer yet. Although I think it's going to be a 25-minute race. We were quite far ahead of time actually. We started 15 minutes early, so we've got to cut the race time by 5 minutes to get. I think because the whole process of the start and then the clear up and the stopping took roughly about 4 or 5 minutes anyway. So they kind of basically started the race basically from where it had finished up. So
the other factor there, Scott, is also fuel levels. Obviously, we fuel for a 30-minute race. If you have a start and a stop, it can obviously chew up a bit more fuel, and we don't want to see people running out of fuel by the end. So sometimes that can be a factor, and therefore we do just reduce slightly.
So Alan Curtis, his spot on the front of the grid. In terms of any connotations of who started the incident, etc., that will be looked at after the race by the clerk of the course and the stewards in terms of who was deemed at fault, or if it was just a racing incident and just a circumstance of cars being close at the start of the race and getting together. But nonetheless, it's a bit of a chance for it's just a bit of redemption now for the front row. And it was a good start from Blair McConaughey, but of course the man that really wants to try and get the better start this time is the man alongside me, Alan Curtis. He wants to think, right, what didn't I get right in that first start? What can I change there? Because he gets literally a second chance to kind of correct what he didn't get right in the first one, and maybe sort of get an idea of maybe jumping with lights better, or maybe it's just judging a little bit of how Blair's going to move across, or which line he's going to take on the run towards Ritchie's, and how he can possibly defend or get a better run off the corner. So, as I say, it's a new experience for him. Hasn't been this hard on the grid before, as far as I'm aware. So he now has got the proper chance to try and get himself right some of the championship leaders, and essentially, in a good way, make us a bit of a nuisance around those who are usually front runners.
There's a lot to think about. And you've got all the adrenaline. What you're trying to make sure you're in first gear, so there's a confirmation that you've got the right gear set, making sure your time is ready to go. You bring your clutch foot up to the biting point so that it doesn't have to move any further than it needs to, and all the time trying to control your adrenaline and get your accelerator at exactly the right point to give you that ultimate launch. Awful lot to think about, and there's loads of little things that can go wrong. We've seen a couple of the pole positions today. The adrenaline maybe got the better of them, but yeah, Blair proving that the inside line there is still okay. We've got a full a green flag lap again to reset this grid as we're seeing the signals going out.
Yeah, 1 minute board's gone up, 30-second board about to follow any second now, which it does. So the buzzers go off for the drivers to signal that they're just about to get underway, and as you rightly say, Chris, they will put them on a second green flag lap to get some temperature into the tyres and brakes, get them set for their second go at the start of this first Motul Caterham 270 race of the weekend.
So it would be an opportunity for them to check that there's no fluid down at the place where all the cars were coming together. It's very easy to pop a radiator on a Caterham if you've got front to rear contact. So they'll also have a good opportunity to see the track and the condition and make sure they're happy with everything around the circuit.
Indeed, so it's also a good chance as well to give a massive thank you to all the hard work of our marshals and volunteers, particularly for clearing up the incident as quick as they could, the recovery teams and all of our fantastic Orange Army for all their hard work they're doing on essentially what is them from their regular day jobs and everything else. So technically a weekend off for them, but it's for them helping race meetings happen and helping be part of the sport that they love more than anything else. And for them we say a massive thank you, because genuinely without marshals and volunteers and motorsport, this event wouldn't happen at all. So a massive thank you to them and all the hard work they're putting in, especially getting everything cleared up there so we can quickly turn things around and get this race back underway for a second start at this point.
They do an epic job, and on behalf of all drivers, yeah, we always like to thank all the marshals around here. That we can't do what we want without you, so thank you very much for the work you do.
So onto the formation lap they go. So let's just then, I'll quickly just do a run through again just briefly if you're maybe just joined us after in between that red flag and didn't see the first start and therefore didn't quite catch the grid order. So of course again they line up in the same order they qualified again, because the race had not completed 2 full laps before the race before the red flag came out. So again, original starting places from where they qualified earlier on this morning. So points to Blair McConaughey then, he's back on pole position. Alan Curtis gets a second chance at a front row start now alongside him in second spot on that first row. Then it's Carl Jones and Harry Ayer, Blair's 2 main championship rivals, starting together on the grid. There they are. Then you've got Stephen Lyle, double winner from Croft, alongside Wes Payne. Then we've got Demetrius Melas and Chris Ephraimidis on the 4th row of the grid. David Morgan and will be on his own because Angus McLean won't be there after he damaged his suspension in that incident, so fortunately he will be out of it. Fraser Jones and Oliver Smith will then start on the 6th row of the grid. Paul Herndon and John Cox will start in row 7. Row 8 will go to Tim Steele and James Cameron, followed by Darryl Cresswell and Nick Allbone, 2 drivers who have those mega starts, but has to start all the way back now in 18th place again, so watch for him from row 5. We want to see if he gets a demon start once more. The top 20 completed by Peter Wales and Michael Curley, followed by Ryan Errol and Richard Hall, Roger Gaughan and Stefano Mara, and then Duncan Cook, who is another driver who won't see on the grid after he was also the other person got caught up in that incident and had to be recovered when the red flag came out. And then Dan Clayfan, who again picked his way through all of the melee in front of him that was going on to get himself up 12 spots from 26th up into 14th. So again, he's another one, Chris, I'm sure that if he can pick his way through and keep his nose clean, is another one who'll be able to pick up some good spots in the first opening couple of laps when the pack is still tight together.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I think it might have been Dan Clayfan's car that had quite a dent up its rear end, so I'm sure he was actually involved in that, but obviously that pushed him through the field rather than actually costing him time. But there's certainly one car out there with the rear panel looking a little bit dented, and I thought it might have been Dan's car. But yes, you always looking for those opportunities, aren't you, and looking for them to come to you. But you know, the red flag obviously scuppered those chances. But does this mean that Alan's actually had 2 front row starts now? I'm not sure what the record book says, but certainly this will be an opportunity for redemption, won't it?
The history books in terms of the TSR results show he had 1 front row start, where in reality he had 2 chances at that 1 front row start in terms of the result. So I think he will claim himself, yeah, I started from the front row twice. TSL will show he started technically once, but of course he did
driver.
do twice.
He's definitely started twice on the front row. But here we are. We're coming up to that pole position line for Blair there, with Alan alongside and Carl Jones and Harry Eyre. So they say the class of the season, all at the front here, looking to see whether Stephen Lyle can make that opportunistic move again up the inside. And Wes Payne has been involved pretty much the whole season as well, hasn't he, in his nice pearlescent car? Yeah,
and also, as you said, keep an eye for Stephen Lyle. Now he's on form from his double win at Croft. He will not want to stay where he is on the 3rd row of the grid. So watch out for the dark grey car with the orange stripes. That's Stephen Lyle from the inside of the 3rd row on 5th position. So Blair McConaughey then gets a chance to try and hold on to the lead. Alan Curtis, meanwhile, gets a chance to redeem himself after his less than stellar first attempt at this front row start. Let's see if he can get it right this time and possibly even keep the cars around him at bay and hold on. Last couple of cars get into position. Green flag at the back. 5-second board goes up. Let's try this again, shall we? Second time to get this race, the first race of the weekend for the Motul Caterham 7 270R Championship. McConaughey and Curtis on the front row of the grid. Who gets a better start this time? Better start from Alan Curtis, much better this time from the front row. And he actually, on the front row down towards turn 1, pulls level with Blair McConaughey. He's right down the sprint down towards Richie. He's on the inside lines, McConaughey in the white car with the black nose. Curtis sweeps across and loses 1 place to Carl Jones. But if he can just lose 1 place, that'd be a much better start than before. He's still in there, but he's got cars to his inside line down towards Wilson for the first time. Into the right-hander goes McConaughey. He's under threat from Jones. Where is Curtis? He's now 3rd still on the exit of the hairpin at Wilson. Under threat from Wes Payne. I think Demetrius Melas got a good start there. He's up to, I think, 4th or 5th, I think, possibly, if not Stephen Lyle. Into the left-hander they go at Palmer. And it's going to be in the lead as they emerge on camera. It will be a couple of cars running wide on the exit, but we need to see if we can. There we go. McConaughey leads it. Jones in 2nd place. And I think Curtis, he's still staying. He's still there. He's still in 3rd place. So good start from him. Much better getaway from the front row. And this time he's really made it work. And he's getting his elbows out much more. Much better from Alan this time.
Yeah, I think it might have been Speedy Dry down there to clean up some of that liquid. We saw Blair actually locking up a tiny bit into Agostini there. And I wonder whether he got a bit of muck on his tyres. Alan Curtis there losing out to Stephen Lyle. Wes Payne is next up on that list. But Blair McConaughey doing Blair McConaughey things and actually getting off the line extremely well and moving off.
Of course, he'll be a bit relieved that in the previous times when he's raced in Caterham's, his old perennial rival and sparring partner Tom Willis, who has been a couple of times, we should stress, as a guest driver, so even if he has won races, he's been invisible to results in terms of point scoring. Usually, because the past couple of seasons has been his running theme. Tom Willis and Blair McConaughey, the 2 main They both battled for the championship in Academy. Tom Willis won, Blair was 2nd. Roadsport, same thing happened. Both battled for the championship. Tom won, Blair was 2nd. Now Blair is now in a position to win the championship himself, regardless of Tom being there or not. He's really shown a growing in his potential pace and his speed and his racecraft as a whole, and he really has taken this championship this year by the scruff of the neck and really made it his own in terms of his pace. Even the times when Tom has been there, Tom hasn't always had the pace over him, and Blair's shown that he can hold pace and keep at bay when he needs to.
Yeah, and ultra consistent as well, extremely good at making sure that he never makes that mistake that cost you the time that he had here. Coming up to the line, Alan looks like he's struggling to toe someone, so obviously he's giving full toe to Harry there as he pulls to the outside, and I imagine that he's going to be able to sweep around him by the time we get up to this turn.
But consistency. 3 race meetings, Donington, Knockhill, Silverstone Grand Prix. Out of 6 races, literally 4 in a row, Blair won 4 of them. He won the 2nd race at Donington, both races at his home venue of Knockhill, which I know he and his fans and family absolutely loved. And then he won the 1st race on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. So great stuff for Blair to keep his consistency up. He's won another race since then at Brands Hatch, lots of battle to go in the mid-pack.
Yeah, we saw Harrier drifting wide out of turn 1, and then again wide out of the hairpin, and Alan Curtis is now back into just behind Wes Payne. So where it looked like Harrier had got it done and dusted, it actually didn't turn out that way in the end. But certainly this race at the front, this front 4 that we saw in that first race, they were all, or the first part of this race, I should say, they're now back out there and looking ready to give us a good show for the next 21 minutes.
So turn in through the left-hander at Hamilton and back to Ark. You can see a lot of spectators on the bank around there watching on here this weekend at Snetterton. I did notice quite a few around just at the last corner at Murray's and around the couple of the grandstands and some of the viewing banks around here at the circuit. Great to see plenty of spectators out this weekend here at Snetterton. Good to have them here watching some fine British club motorsport, particularly with Caterham in town. It's always guaranteed action with these guys and girls. Up through the right-hander at Williams, couple of cars running wide. 48 there is Richard Hoare, and he's having a scrap there with 94 Stefano Mara. So they're actually equal on points coming into the weekend in the championship. 27, so that's a bit of a personal championship battle for them. There's the front row starter, Alan Curtis. He's getting into Harrier, and Harrier might be finding that quite frustrating for somebody who is 5 ahead of him at the moment in time. And if he's not doing anything wrong at all, he's just pure pace for him. And he's just simply frustrating Harry out of coincidence, because he's there on pace, and Harry's thinking, I like you very much, Alan, but you need to get out of my way, because while it's an impressive run for you so far, I need the place you've got, and I need it kind of now.
Absolutely not Alan's job to do that, though, and if Harry hadn't made that mistake, he would have been ahead, wouldn't he? So it's about making sure you're in the right place and maximising. We see there Lyle going at 2:12.8 for one of the opening laps, but he's certainly shown that pace, as we see again side by side Harry going around the outside into turn 1. Can he keep it on the track?
Just also seeing that we've got having a good run so far. Looks like he's up to 7th place. He's the white, red and gold car that we saw going through the shot. He's up into 7th place. There he is at number 71. You can start from him. Where did he start on the grid? Let's have a quick look back on the grid. Oliver Smith was as 12th position. He's made up 5 spots. So we see now wheel to wheel between James Cameron battling away with Fraser Jones. So Fraser's got past James then. That's up him up into 12th position. Meanwhile, Stephen Lyle is wasting no time here, and neither is Carl Jones storming up the inside of Agostini. Really gave Blair the fright there under brakes, and as a result of that, pushed him inadvertently without contact, forced him wide, and allowed both Stephen Lyle to get through. And now Wes Payne's in contention now. So not only is Carl Jones charging, so Stephen Lyle, ever the opportunist, snuck up the inside, saw Blair around wide, and thought, "Thank you for that. 2nd place. I'll go for the win now, if you don't mind."
Carl Jones is putting his nose in there. You can see that he was absolutely on the limit of his brakes. Blair had to turn out. We had a bit of a wing loss there. I'm not sure exactly what caused that. I didn't see the sort of instigator, but that's gone off racing line, so we're all good. But yeah, so absolutely never shy of putting it down the inside. Blair had to turn out, and that just gave Lyle absolutely, like I say, the opportunist move to tuck his car at the inside. We see Carl Jones protecting. Is Lyle going to go around the outside into Brundless? He does. So they've actually solidified their lead here. So it's up to now Blair to try and get back on it. He was the one that lost that wing.
So I would suspect possibly a little bit of a tap possibly between himself and Payne, I think, because Wes was right behind him in 4th position there. So the only explanation I can think of was that possibly there was a little bit of a non-purposeful tap, and as a result of that, he's lost the rear wing. Wes Payne, where are you going, Wes Payne? Right on the outside. It's not the first time I've seen someone go that sideways through Cora, but Wes Payne, ever the opportunist, trying to put that car fully sideways through Cora corner. It's spectacular, but it ain't the fastest way through Cora, but it certainly hurts him in terms of pace. He hasn't lost much pace. In fact, actually, he's lost a few car lengths, enough to put him under threat from Harrier now, who's in his slipstream. Now it's side by side for the leaders to go up towards turn 1. And Blair McConaughey then swarming around both the pair of them, Stephen Lyle and Carl Jones, as they went toe-to-toe into Richie's corner. He was in the mix, but Wes Payne looked more like Mad Max rather than a Caterham driver.
Absolutely full style marks we give. A bit of grass involved as well. I imagine he was having a Code Brown moment there, but he was absolutely brilliant on the exit there. And the fact that he didn't lose that much time and maybe only 1 place is actually testament to how quick he was going.
Fantastic. There's 2 things fabulous about Wes Payne. It's not just his paint job. In fact, his car control goes into that as well. Now we've got a real 5-car scrap going on for the lead here, because Carl Jones is getting very defensive on the run down towards Agostini hairpin. Down the outside looks Stephen Lyle. Blair McConaughey's in there. So is Wes Payne, and so is Harrier. And also one job we again still have to keep on watching is going to be Oliver Smith, because he's just set the fastest lap of the race. He's not far behind Alan Curtis. He's just there, just left the shot we saw before we switched cameras. In 7th place and charging along, and Championship. I'm not sure where this pace has really come from from him, because look at where he was in 270Rs coming into the weekend. Oliver Smith was 23rd. His best result so far this season has been outside the top 10. Oliver Smith, I think the simple question is, where's this pace come from?
Sometimes it can just be a bit, he might be local to this area. I haven't seen where he's stayed, or maybe he just really gets on with this track. But you get that sometimes you have a driver who's had just a bit more experience, and other tracks they just haven't made it there for testing or whatever, and they show some of their true form and colours. But whatever he's had his breakfast this morning, hasn't he? He's woken up fast and off he goes.
I think the phrase is he's had his Weetabix, doesn't it? Although other brand cereals are available. Meanwhile, just behind them in the scrap, we've got this is then Tim Steele having a battle here with James Cameron. He's slipping a bit further back. Paul Herndon's in there too as well. We've got Michael Curley, Darryl Cresswell, Dan Clayfan, Ryan Errol's in there as well. Lots of battling again. Lots of midfield scraps here going on with these guys. Lots of great battling. All three abreast of decorum. I wouldn't do that, and I'm not sure you would either, Chris. Risky move. They want to battle, but three abreast of decorum. No, count me out on that.
You're asking an awful lot of your tyres just by driving around Coram, single file. Therefore, if you're going side by side, you're absolutely asking a bit too much of your tyres at that point. But it's fun to try, isn't it? And you never know until you do.
Down the pit straight they go again. Still the lead gap between Lyle and Jones about just under a tenth and a half or so. Go for the right-handed car number 3. That was Nick Allbones having a good run so far. Remember, Nick started quite far back in the grid, but he's now so far in this race in 11th place. Meanwhile, the leaders are all back together again. There's Lyle with Jones with a good exit out of Wilson Hairpin. Now to his inside in through Palmer's. They're side by side as they turn through the left-hander. It's slightly off camber on the outside of the corner. So if you can hold on, you can try and make a move here. Side by side again, but Jones is on the right line he needs to be. It's 2 by 2 like Noah's Ark down towards it. There's been contact behind. Michael Curley's involved in that. We'll come back to that in a minute. Meanwhile, West Payne makes it 3 abreast for third into the Hairpin. And talked about Mad Max. Again, he's now from that mistake. He's got past both Blair McConaughey and Harry Air in the move. Where's that come from?
Yeah, the two out front, they're doing a blocking manoeuvre, weren't they? They were across the whole track, and there was nowhere else for the following cars to go. But Wes Payne found his gap through the middle, and he is now back up to third place after his wild antics and looking under control and there in third place.
And Stephen Lyle also made the move into Oggies and slips into the lead. But look at this, you've now got a 6-car train, including at the back of it. Hello, Alan Curtis. Remember him? He was at the front of the grid. So 7-car back, because there's Oliver Smith. Oliver Smith could potentially be in a position, dare I say, to win this race, and there is still half of it to go. It's a typical 7-car scrap at the front. It's typical Caterham racing with Carl Jones at the front. It's Carl Jones, Blair McConaughey back up to second, Stephen Lyle third, Harry Air fourth. Into fifth now goes Alan Curtis, just up the inside to Wes Payne sixth, Oliver Smith in 7th place. Then the next group comes through, which is Demetrius Malas and David Morgan. And Chris Ephraimidis is in there. We've got Nick Allbones, James Steele. This is one of those races that literally everywhere you look, there was an epic battle going on. Typical Caterham Motorsport action at its absolute finest.
Yeah, Carl going absolute defensive into Brundle and Senna S is there, right on the inside. Allowed Blair actually to make that move round Stephen Lyle into that corner, but now they're all that line abreast and they're ready to do another lap, and they do it all again.
Up the inside looks Blair McConaughey. Stephen Lyle tries to follow him through. Carl Jones stuck on the outside line with Harry Air trying to follow him into 4th position as well. So to the right-hander, and Carl Jones has lost 1, 2, maybe 3 spots. Under brakes, he tries to fight back down the outside. Blair McConaughey's got his number though. Up the inside into the Wilson Hairpin and back into the lead goes the championship leader. 2nd for Carl Jones, 3rd for Stephen Lyle, and still 4th for Harry Air. Then it's Curry, Payne and Smith. That leading group of 7 cars only separated by 2.1 seconds. The first 6 of which of those 7 covered by 1.6. It is that close at the front.
Yeah, really a brilliant thing. We see Jones again looking down the inside. He did sort of teach Blair a lesson into that a couple of laps ago. Blair's got it protected this time, and we've got Lyle attacking around the outside. Again, it's where do you look? If you look back, do you look in front? Do you look behind? And Lyle getting squeezed onto the grass there by Jones. No way through, but he actually feeds back into that train, and they all continue.
So out through left-hander at Hamilton again. This is lap 6. Fastest lap of the race again, still held by the man in 7th place, Oliver Smith, who's having literally the race of his life at the moment so far, up in that 7th place spot. He probably can't believe how far he's thinking, hold on a minute, I'm never usually this high, but great stuff. There he is, Oliver Smith. Great job from him so far. And he makes his way up the back straight. Tries to keep in the toe of the cars in front, but just top 6 in that big bunch together, just trying to pull away a little bit collectively, but he's doing well to keep with them. McConaughey then, holding the lines, then turn back in through Complex side by side for second. Lyle goes around the outside, looks up the inside. There was a bit of a peek up the inside for McConaughey, but he shut the door quickly. Lyle took to the curb, and that's not compromised his exit from the right-hander at Wilson. Another piece of bodywork goes flying. Another wing goes off from someone in that pack. I didn't quite catch what it was, but we'll see something when we see them next in the shot. There's another one of the group, Chris F. Ramirez. Lots of battles going on here. Again, absolutely typical textbook Caterham racing. Everywhere you look, there is a battle, there is a duel, there is a fight going on. It is glorious stuff in beautiful late afternoon autumnal Norfolk sunshine.
Yeah, we've still got the 310s to come, who are the most experienced drivers we've got here, but these are 270s are putting on a great show, aren't they? And like you say, the battle is deep and just as intense behind. And again, if you ever compare these kind of laps to the Academy and the Roadsport we've seen already, just look how accurate they all are on their apexes. You know, one after another, they're all hitting them, and that's the kind of experience that comes with just a bit more time in the car, and certainly with the new stiffer suspension, with side by side there to the turn one, it always makes you hold your breath, but they somehow come out pointing the right way every time.
That was Cresswell, Cameron and Fraser Jones. Fraser Jones, I'm surprised, he's usually a bit higher up. It's almost as if like Fraser Jones and Oliver Smith have swapped suits and swapped cars, because usually we see Fraser Smith a bit further back, whereas it's now opposite way around quite oddly, but interesting enough that he's struggling back in what's currently at the moment, around about 7th place. Now back for the lead, Lyle versus McConaughey's on at the moment. This is Joe Agostini now for the 7th time. Come back up the back straight. Oliver up the short straight towards the left-hander at Hamilton. And Oliver Smith still staying in touch there. Again, the spread between the top 7 is still only 2.5 seconds, so it's good to see them close together. There is still only 10 minutes and 20 seconds to go. As they now come onto the back straight once again, and let's see who passes who this time in the slipstream. Through they go. To see who else has lost a wing. I think possibly Alan Curtis was the one that lost the wing.
I think Carl Jones was looking like he had suspiciously lost the wing, and he was right alongside Stephen Lyle when that came flying out. So I think that might be the smoking gun there for that one.
Good shout.
Yeah, but Blair and Stephen look like they look like they might get a bit of a gap over the line, but actually that's all closed up again. So again, it just shows around this track especially, there's no escaping. You'll be in for a battle, a race.
You're right on the call. I think I did see that at Carl Jones is without his right wheel wings. Absolutely right. Good call, Chris. As they come up through Brundle Nelson, more battle going on. That's Paul Herndon, who's having the last couple of laps. I think such a great side-by-side duel with Tim Steele here in car 53. Both of them going wheel to wheel through several corners. And now Wes Payne turns his way through as he's a little bit further back. So Wes Payne's dropped. Oh, he's still in. So what's happened to Wes Payne there? Because Wes Payne's dropped back a bit. He's quite far back now. So either that or everyone's spread. No, he can't spread out. So he's now back down with Nick Allbones and Morgan and Mallet. So what's happened to Wes? Oh, he's in the pit lane. Wes Payne with a problem. So whatever happened to Wes Payne there has caused him a problem that's going to bring him into the pit lane, and sadly looks like out of contention for this race. So despite all his entertaining antics, it seems to be all for nothing, I'm afraid. With 9 minutes to go, that's a DNF.
That is, and that's a real sad. It's in race 1. That means that you do start from the back of the grid for race 2, but that does give us a storyline for tomorrow's race where we can follow his progress through. But that will scupper his championship ambitions, won't it? It will be one of his drop scores, so it certainly takes away another life that you get given with those drop scores.
Yeah, look at Rose in the points. Fraser Jones, who he can take comfort in not having a great race himself, but he was 5 points behind Stephen Lyle. Harrier with a huge dive up the inside. Didn't quite make that stick, and Stephen Blair just went, what are you doing? Back up the inside we go. Let's just probably look at them laughing as he went past going through that complex. So now, rather than a Super 7, it's a Super 6 at the front, because we've now got Lyle, McConaughey, Eyre, Jones, Curtis and Smith. We should say provisionally in any order, because usually the order we see them in is not the same order we see them a lap later.
We just saw Jones actually getting on the exit of Agostini there, going onto the grass, and Alan Curtis is moved up into, I think, is that 5th or 4th place there. So
looks like 4th.
Yeah. So again, you know, after that race 1, he is going to be absolutely celebrating the fact we had that restart. On the edge all the time, and Eyre there, yeah, like you say, making a real, almost, you know, last lap type dive down the inside of Agostini. You want to be saving that and keeping your powder dry for right a bit later in that race.
We still have 8 minutes to go, so what he was looking at, I'm not sure. Through out the complex, not towards the bomb hole, goes the top 6. Meanwhile, in the middle of the pack, just casually 3 abreast of Brundle Nelson, like it's no big deal. We've got there, that's the 7 of. Look at the numbers here now. 7 is one of the James Cameron. I think he's one of the invitation drivers in the factory run Caterham 270R. Fraser Jones is in there too. And also you've got there Daryl Cresswell and John Cox having a battle. That's over 15th down to 18th, these guys, deep in the mid-pack. Here's Tim Steele scrapping with 73, Dan Clayfam, who, remember Dan started right at the back of the grid, or almost where he was. He was right at the back in 26th position. He's now up into 13th, so he's quite literally passed half the field to get through.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant to see Dan moving back through the field there. He's been, you know, a mainstay of this grid for a while now, and it's great to see he's made all that progress right up to that mid pack. Bit of damage there at a very tatty number 52 there. That's Peter Wales there, sort of, and he was the guy with the sort of slightly dented rear panel there. But as we come back to this lead battle, we've got Stephen Lyle there down the inside, Blair McConaughey around the outside, and we've got Harry Eyre still looking there. This time round, Harry doesn't decide to do the last of the late breakers and stays in his third place. But we've got Carl Jones back up to fourth. And we've got Alan Curtis still there, and Smith hanging on in there as well. So, you know, it's kind of everything stayed stationary that time, but it's exciting even when they stay stationary, Scott.
So still pretty close, top 6 separated by 1.6 seconds at this point, so still anyone's guess for who's going to end up on the podium, let alone win this race. They turn out through Williams and onto the back straight. Oliver Smith having literally the race of his life, as we talked about earlier on, holding onto this pack. I think he's simply just waiting for the moment where each one drops off and he just picks up a place as he goes on. So if he keeps at this rate, it'll win the race if they keep on dropping off like flies like this point. 5.5 minutes to go. McConaughey still leads, but that means nothing with 5.5 minutes with a gap this close, a group this close, and this competitive. Back up the inside goes Lyle for second place on Eyre. So it's currently McConaughey, Lyle, Eyre, then Jones, then Alan Curtis, and then Oliver Smith. Further back, there's Clayfan up another spot. So that's him past Tim Steele. Of course, they made up a couple of spots after a couple of cars just dropped off and had some issues. So that's now Dan incredibly into the top 10 after starting back in 26th position. So if there was a Driver of the Day award, I think at least he if there was one, he'd definitely be a contender for that run. He's up 16 spots in this race. There's still a chance to maybe a couple more. Excellent stuff from Dan. He usually is, again, a bit higher than this at the back of the grid, but certainly showing his pace as we go into combat once again for second place down towards the right-hander.
Yeah, we got Blair coming down here, able to take his own racing line that time for the first time in a little while. We've actually got sort of 3 abreast. Again, sometimes that shows that Blair might have that little bit of extra speed, but Harry Eyre trying to shove it down the inside of Lyle on into the inside of the hairpin, but actually it's oh, crikey, I can't even keep up myself, but yeah, it's actually Jones, isn't it, there into second place now. So Eyre has actually slipped back a little bit with Lyle there still trying to hold on. Lyle's been permanently positioned second and third, and McConaughey has taken the majority of those lead opportunities. So we've even got a little gap now.
Yeah, McConaughey's managed to stretch a gap now. It's leaving everyone else to scrap amongst them for second place. And also look at Oliver Smith in the car at the back of the grid. He's now getting stuck into the battle. Now he's getting right into the mix in what's now a 5-car group for second place, because you're absolutely right. Blair McConaughey is pulling away now and trying to pull that gap of a couple of seconds. So he knows, again, it's that age-old thing of the harder these cars fight each other, the easier it is for him to keep on making a break, particularly at this point in the race where he needs that gap to try and keep himself out of a tow, out of a slipstream, and in contention to try and keep himself a little bit of time to just not necessarily take a breather, but just kind of be a little bit less under pressure and to cope with being able to reel off the last couple of laps and get this race finished to get another race win.
We spoke about its consistency, and by being out front all the time, you maximise the chance that this will happen. If the 2 behind you go side by side and you've got that ultimate pace, you can get that gap. Now, we've only got 3 minutes left of this race, and there's plenty of time for that gap to be reduced again, especially with the tow round here. But Harry Eyre now into second place. I think that's the highest he's been for a little while now, but Jones and then Lyle has slipped back down to fourth. So they're all going to be keen to make those positions up, but we've probably only got maybe 2 laps to go.
Any thoughts of working together are completely out of the window, because these lot will be looking out for their own gain. Is me, myself and I. They will only be looking out for themselves, and rightfully so, because it's quite a heavy scrap at the top of the table and at the top of the pack here in the Caterham 270R Championship. Turn the way through the right-hander of the bomb hole. Still about 2.5 minutes to go. The leaders come across the line outside our commentary box window. They're going to start the second to last lap. They're going to have, I think, 2 more laps to go, because lap time wise, yeah, they've got enough for 2 more. So they'll cross the line with roughly around about 15 seconds to go. So basically 6 more miles exactly for Blair McConaughey to cover to hold on to this lead number 270R race. But as we're seeing so far, yes, he's got a gap about half a second, but considering how quickly you can even get a tow, even just half a second in these Caterhams, and how big a tow you can get from these cars, that means nothing.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to break away, but actually I think we will see them next time on screen. We'll probably see them all back together again. As they move through, as we're watching again, James Cameron there and Creswell in their battle deep in the field. But actually Blair still does have a little gap, and they're going at it again. So Jones and Air all absolutely locked up going into Agostini there with Lyle behind. So again, maybe a bit of smoke coming out of there, isn't that? Outside of Jones's left rear cut tyre. Yeah,
I think that was a nudge in the rear from Harry Air on Carl Jones under braking. Because of that, it just dipped a little bit of the rear wheel arch, what's left of the metal, just onto the tyre. So hopefully it doesn't rub too much and cause a problem. But Harry was really trying to force the issue down into the hairpin there to try and make that move stick, and just Carl, which he's entitled to do, Carl just kept to his line and held firm. Harry kept pressing the issue a bit and just nudged the rear of his car. Now he's going for a second move down the back straight. And again, all this is just allowing Blair to try and pull away even more and create that gap back again. So again, even they resign themselves to second place. They're 3 abreast again down to the complex. Who goes down the outside? Jones is back in front of Air and holds on this time. Ben holds on. But Stephen Long passed them both in one move and gets through. Alan Curtis then tries to get him back on the exit, try and get stuff in the mix. Oliver Smith's being left behind, sadly, in this battle. Malas and Morgan having their own scrap in 7th and 8th. Ephraimides is 9th, and Dan Clayfan is in the top 10 now. So out of all of this, there's so much going on, and there's still battles going on further down the pack. So again, everywhere you look, there is a story to be told and a battle to be had that's always anything but. There's nothing less than absolutely incredible.
So you're right, you could see on Jones's car the rear mudguard had tucked slightly. As long as it's the mudguard, that's generally okay, it won't cause a problem. But if it's the metal, it can cause more of a problem. But I wonder whether it actually slowed him onto that straight while it was still just sort of sorting itself out, because we definitely saw him losing a bit of time there as Lyle protecting his line there from Carl Jones as he recovers.
I think there's been a bit of a glitch with the transponder of Blair McConaughey's car. Yes, it has, yeah, because he just popped in. And not only was he late to pop in, but also they just popped in the new fastest lap of the race, which probably couldn't even believe because it was a 2 minutes 11. So 2 minutes 11.9. We're on to the last lap of the race now. The time has hit 0. This is it. Final lap of the race to sort themselves out. McConaughey has the lead, but Lyle and Co are going to try and go after it. So out of Palmer for the last time. McConaughey hasn't quite spread eagled this bunch, but he's going to try and keep the gap going as much as he can into the left-hander through the hairpin. So there goes McConaughey, then Lyle, Air, everyone else trying to be looks like 4th position. Round the outside of Curtis has got Oliver Smith, so he's into the top 5. He's still got a chance of a podium if he can play it right and work his way through. Out to Hamilton. Hard in this first 270R race. And the crazy thing is, of course, Chris, they've got this and then 2 more races to go, so it's still not guaranteed by any margin for Blair McConaughey and co. This could all change on a sixpence.
Absolutely, but he's certainly maximising, isn't he, taking that fastest lap. So Smith actually lost a point for losing his fastest lap at that point, but then he gained it back on track by overtaking Alan Curtis. But we're coming down into Brundle and Nelson. This is sort of one of the big opportunities for overtaking on this last lap, and you can see Curtis there pulling to the inside. Is he going to have enough opportunity to overtake? It looks like he's tucked back in there, so he will still sit behind following Smith onto that final bit. But Blair certainly looks like he's got a slight gap there, which is going to be enough to keep him ahead of Lyle going onto that final straight, I'd imagine.
Of course, it's never done till they get past the post. Oh, and contact behind. That's a big accident. Demetrius Manas off into the wall. Now, he was battling with David Morgan. I'm not sure if there was contact. It was just out of our camera. Thankfully, initially, we can see at least Demetrius is moving, so hopefully he is okay. We'll come back to that in a moment after the race is finished. But out of the final couple of corners and onto the pit straight, Championship leader is going to take another victory and another step closer. His first Caterham title. He's going to come to the checkered flag and take victory in the excellent race. Blair McConaughey wins race 1 at Snetterton, followed by Steve Lyle in second. He pitches the fastest lap of the race on the final lap and takes the extra point to go with it. Harry Air is 3rd, Carl Jones is 4th, Oliver Smith with his best results ever in a Caterham race as far as we're aware, in 5th in Caterham Motorsport circles of the season, 6th for Alan Curtis, and then whatever happened to 7th downwards, it now means we've got 7th place for David Morgan 7th, Tim Steele 8th, Dan Clayfan he's 9th from 26th on the grid. 17 places made up in one race. That's incredible stuff in half an hour. Great stuff from him. It's 10th for Chris Ephraimides, 11th for Paul Herndon. There's Ryan Errol, Darrell Cresswell, Fraser Jones and James Cameron, followed by John Cox, Peter Wells, Roger Gaunt, and then it's Michael Curley and Richard Hoare. And of course, the main thing is, obviously, whilst the main headline is Blair McConaughey takes the victory, of course, the main thing is, even though we can see him moving, fingers crossed that Demetrius Melas, after what was quite a heavy impact into the barriers, fingers crossed he's okay.
Yeah, it certainly was. I never like to see that, and like you say, you can see the front of the car is actually pretty damaged there.
But they do build them tough in Gatwick, so and that's testament to that. So
he certainly looks out of the car, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, you could see that he had vacated the car, which is going to take quite a bit of work, I think, by the team to get that race worthy again, if possible. Hopefully, it's not the end of his weekend, but it'd be a sad premature end if it is. But hopefully, the Caterham team can rally around and get that car back out, and he'll get him on the grid for race 2. He will have to start from the back of the grid essentially, but he's a pretty quick driver, and being up as high as 7th means he'll probably have to pull off a Dan Clayfan-esque drive from the back if he can make it through to do that. But yeah, first and foremost, the fact that he's first of all moving is a good sign. Second, looks like he's been able to get out of the car of his own accord. But of course, as with any incident like that, he will always, as a precaution, go to the medical centre to be checked over by the Chief Medical Officer, purely as a precaution to make sure that, while he can get out of the car, there's nothing untoward which isn't immediately evident that could be wrong with him on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always worth having precautions.
So Blair McConaughey then takes another race win in the 2021 Motul Caterham 7270R Championship. He wins by half a second from Stephen Lyle in second place, Harry Eyre is third. Then it goes to Carl Jones and Oliver Smith with his best result of the season in fifth, followed by Alan Curtis with a great sixth after he started on the front row. David Morgan, Tim Steele, Dan Clayfan and Chris Ephraimidis. Paul Herndon finishes 11th, followed by Ryan Errol, Darrell Cresswell, David Fraser Jones, James Cameron, John Cox, Peter Wells, Roger Gaunt, Michael Curley and Richard Hoare. And then we lost 6 cars in that race, sadly. Demetrius Melas after his late incident, Nick Allbones with a problem, Wes Payne after he pulled into the pit, Stefano Mara as well with issues, and sadly Duncan Cook and Angus McLean, who were both casualties of the red flag after that first lap incident on the first start. Right, back down to the assembly area and back down to Chris Buxton to have a chat to a couple of our drivers for our next race.
buddy, how you doing?
Good.
How's your day?
Good.
Scored any goals? Oh.
Welcome back to sunny Snetterton for the final race of today for the Caterham crew, and it's the turn of the big boys. It is the Bilstein Caterham 7 310R Championship. On the pole spot is car number 88, it's Pete Walters. Hopefully we'll have a chance to have a chat to him. Pete, on the pole spots, happy with that?
Yeah, good. We left Croft and the car was just not performing at all. The guys of LFP have done an epic job the last couple of days just to bring the car back into how I like it, and it just felt great. The car felt awesome this morning, so hopefully capitalise on that a bit more.
Now you've got the most amount of horses out of all the Caterhams, 552 horses under here in something that weighs as much as a damp towel. Around somewhere like Snetterton, I'd have thought.
It is one of my favourites actually of here in the UK. Not that any of them are really bad, but yeah, the car's so much fun, so light, fast round corners, just a perfect piece of equipment for taking around tracks.
Best of luck out there, and we'll see you on the other side. That is number 88, Pete Walters, on the pole spot. Alongside him is car number 79, Lewis Thompson. Lewis, on the front row, do you think you've got the extra bit of time to challenge this one?
Pardon? Sorry, say that again.
Have you got enough enough in you to challenge this man next year?
Definitely. I know he set a very competitive time, but it's Snetterton, the toe is very strong, so as long as I stay with him, I'm sure I'll be able to have a chance at him later on.
Is this a track that's worked well for you in the past?
Not really in the past, no. I crashed here last year, so hoping to change that this year.
Better luck to you for today. We'll see you on the other side. Best of luck to Lewis Thompson in the 79 car. I love the fact that the camera's on top of Pete Walters. Looks like small minions, but I assure you no minions were harmed in the making of his car. On round two. Any chance of moving forward, or is it a case of defending from those behind you?
I think lap one, just try to settle down, get yourself in a good position, but then these are my two championship rivals really, so I've got to try and get past them. I think the most important thing is not let them get away, but yeah, if I stay with them I think I've got a good chance. So.
Now, something we've spoken about in the smaller cars is the importance of slipstream. So the bigger the engine, is slipstream just as important, do you feel?
Yeah, the slipstream is really important still, even for the 310. So it could be last lap. You don't want to be leading as the classic, so we'll see what happens.
And how's the track feel? Is it still as good as it was earlier, or is it getting better as the day goes on?
Hopefully it's better, because earlier the grip level was really bad, so I don't know if it was the fog overnight or something. So I think hopefully it's rubbered in a bit. Should be better.
Best of luck. We'll see you on the other side. Haven't been released yet, so we've got time to have a chat with another one. Let's go further down the grid for starter number 70, Lars Hoffman. So have a chat with the very brightly coloured helmet on Lars.
Yeah.
Is it what's your biggest priority?
First of all, a very good start, and hopefully then first place.
Nothing wrong with a bit of confidence. Have you done well here before? Is Snetterton kind to you?
I won the championship last year here, so yeah.
Big yes. That's a big target to follow for. So, is the top spot one in your reach? Do you think you can get there?
Well, I hope so. Fight for it.
Best of luck out there. We'll see you on the other side. Hopefully got time for one more. Number 13, unlucky for some, but it's worn proudly by James Wingfield. James, you happy with the qualifying?
Not quite what I wanted. Obviously there are 4 people who've done a better job so far, but going into the race I got the pace, so yeah, let's mix it and see what we can get out of it. Looking forward to the race, definitely.
So it doesn't look like much chance of a rain, so it's all going to be done on track. Do you prefer when you slip or like this?
I don't mind both, to be honest. It's always fun when it's mixed, I have to say. I really like those conditions. But yeah, as it is at the moment, we all know what we've got to do, and there's no question over it. This track really is a big toe fest though, so it's going to be really tightly fought, very difficult to break free. So I think we're in for a real classic Caterham battle with lots of cars right at the front this time.
Excellent stuff. Who's your main rival? Who is it you've got your main eye on, or is it that top spot you're aiming for?
I certainly want a top 3 from this. Championship wise, I'm second at the moment, looking third possibly at the end of the year, so it's Harry Cook and I having a great championship fight. So at the moment I've got 3 points on him. I just want to protect that lead and take into the final round a solid third place and see what we can do in Cadwell.
Best of luck, and we'll see you on the other side. The gates are open, the cars are being released. Over to Scott in the commentary box.
Thank you, Chris Buxton. Yes, Chris Hutchison back in the commentary box for another race for today. I think it's our second to last race today and our last Caterham race today. Don't worry, Caterham fans, there is plenty more coming tomorrow, including another set of races for all the championships, including, on top of that as well, the special Autumn Trophy race to watch the Caterham Academy drivers graduate in style. So, on to our fastest Caterhams and highest level Caterhams of the weekend, the Bilstein Caterham 7 310R Championship. This is the ultimate evolution of the original Academy car because if you've watched any of the earlier races, they get the upgrades from Roadsport where they get the uprated rear anti-roll bar and the uprated tyres. They then get the better springs and dampers, remove the headlights and a couple of other tweaks. Then when they get to 310R, that's when the car becomes the final evolution. It becomes the most complete it's kind of version of this original Academy car. On top of all of that, they then get an engine upgrade up to 152 brake horsepower and a limited slip differential on top of that as well to really make it handle. Let's go through the grid quickly and we'll talk through some more aspects of this car. So Pete Walters and Lewis Thompson, the main on the front row of the grid together. Harry Cook and Lars Alexander Hoffman, two other hot shots. Second row of the grid, James Winfield and Matt Shepherd. Welcome back to Matt. He's on the third row of the grid alongside James. Then it's David Yates and Andrew Murgatroyd. David Yates was so close to that victory at Croft last time out. Then it's Harry Senior and Douglas Christie who round out the top 10. That's a strong top 10 with the drivers up there. All of them could be right in the mix for a good result. As could also Rob Keogh. Of course, he's jumped up now, upgraded his car from 270 to 310, so he's now in the mix. He now starts alongside Jamie Elwood. Harry Landy and Jeff Bryce then come next on the 7th row of the 13th and 14th positions. And then we have further back row 8, which is Chris Welch and Henry Williams. And then towards the back end of the grid, we then have Giuseppe Fillet and Gary Curtis on the 9th row. And then to round out the last three positions, we've got Jonathan Ems in 19th place, alongside Stephen Metcalf, and then Martin Gleach in, well, I'm confident, is the ex-Christian Zaruta car in 21st place. I get a nod from Chris there. The reason why I know it's that is because I call it the Brawn GP Special, because it is in. Still in Christian's old colours of white with the Brawn GP sort of fluorescent yellow and black nose. And of course, Chris, being a DPR man, you know all about that car and all about Christian.
Well, I was racing in the 310i in 2018 and Christian was one of my main rivals, so that car still gives me a shiver down the spine every time I see it. Christian, a very wily character. Good to see Jonathan Ems back. He's one of my 2013 Caterham Academy drivers, moved over to the US for a bit, but now looks like he's back and driving his Clockwork Orange inspired car on the field again. Also nice to see Harry Senior and Jamie Elwood making turning up for the 310 racing this time out.
And Matt Shepherd too. He's also a welcome comeback as well. So he's always a driver that's in there or thereabouts, regardless if he gets a win or not. He's always in with a shout, isn't he? Wherever he goes. Yeah.
So last year here at Snetterton, in those torrential conditions, he was well in for a shout of the win there, and we saw him earlier this season at Brands Hatch as well. So it's good to have him back out on the field, keeping his eye in his 310R.
So I would argue we've got arguably probably our most competitive field of the weekend on the grid here in terms of all the cars that we've got. So that's going to be one to watch out for. There is the number 9 car of Harry Cook. Now what's quite ironic is that his old race car, he's going up against it on the same track in the more Rob Keogh now just upgraded because I don't know all the history of all the cases. One I did recognise is the car that Rob Keogh had in 270 yards up until this point was the old car of Harry Cook. In fact, there it is, going through the shot and there. That's Harry Cook's old car, but then Harry Cook got a new one for this season. Rob Keogh bought it, raced it in 270 yards, did quite well because he's come across from Caterham's. He's now upgraded that car, and now Harry Cook will have to look at his mirrors and see that car potentially squaring off against him, which might be quite a bit. Will that feel strange for him, go up against his old car?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of sentimentality there as well. But yeah, Rob Keogh coming into the 270, and actually it's very difficult to come into that field and just make an impact, and he certainly did that. So it'd be interesting to see how he gets on in the 310Rs now. But yeah, we've had another epic season as ever through the Caterham year with these races, and you know, we've had Thompson, who's, other than missing the Donington, he has gone absolute clean sheet, but whilst it looks like it's been an easy runaway for him, actually it's been anything but. So yeah, it's been exciting to see how this whole season developed. But Walters is generally a class act, and he's put it there on pole position. So he's certainly he'll be looking to try and break away there. But there's going to be battles again, like we've seen all the year, all the way down through the field. And as you say, this is the ultimate development of the Caterham Academy car. This is as far as you can take the Academy car, but you get 5 good years of racing out of your car. car, if not more. You can obviously stay in the 310R Championship if you want. And as we've been hearing, you often see the cars stay around in the Championship. They get sold down to new drivers and as drivers move on up. But yeah, great to see them all here lining up and sort of the sun setting almost, isn't it? It's a very picturesque view of Snetterton.
I was about to say beautiful golden sunshine to come down, and what has been a really brilliant first day of racing at Snetterton. It's been fantastic from start to finish, and it's pretty much apart from one qualifying session, or two qualifying sessions, wall-to-wall racing tomorrow from start to finish, which is really good to see. So, the sun setting on today's Caterham action, in fact, excuse the pun, of the Bilstein Caterham 7-310R Championship. So, Lewis Thompson and Pete Walters, who arguably are the two top men in the championship, separated by 11 points on drop scores. There was a yellow flag for a second there, but now the green flag is at the back. All 21 cars are ready to go. 5-second board is up, and the Bilstein Caterham 7-310R Championship will blast into life here at Snetterton any second now. Decent start from the front row, cracking start also from Lars Alexander Hoffer from the second row of the grid. He charged away from fourth on the grid, trying to get down the outside line towards Ritchie for the first time, but Walters will get the whole shot. Everyone's spreading out 3-4 abreast into the right-hander for the first time. There's car 11, that's Jamie Elwood getting in the mix alongside Matt Shepherd, turning out of the right-hander and now towards the hairpin. It was Wilson for the first time. So Walters takes a defensive line on the inside and leads. Thompson's second. Wingfield's up to third. He's making his way up from what was fifth on the grid. A little wide out there was Harry Lanning, having a bit of fisticuffs there with Jeff Price as they squirm their way out towards the left-hander at Palmer and up towards the infield section for the first time. And so at the moment, Walters is in front, but he knows he's got to try to get every point he can out of Thompson. And trying to beat Thompson this year so far has been, when he's been in the races, has been nigh impossible.
Yeah, like I say, he hasn't run away with them all, but he's certainly placed his car at the winning step by the time we get to the end of him. Another nice thing about Thompson, he doesn't run with the side doors, so you can see him working away at the wheel, and it's a nice thing to see. But Wingfield there making a great start up from 5th to 3rd, and looking like these three trying to make a break. We've got some more exhaust gauze left on the track there, and in fact the exhaust there, so I wonder whose that's come off of. Again, maybe we'll hear that going down the straight making an awful noise. But yeah, Thompson right underneath Walters, absolutely looking like he's going to be competing in by the time we get down the end of the straight.
Someone's getting a slap on the wrist of the screws there for that one. Anyway, out for Williams for the first time was the Bentley straight. It's been a long day. Up towards the complex for the first time. Side by side for the lead between who else? Walters and Thompson. Down the outside looks Thompson. Walters holds firm. He's a wily old Fox's piece. He's done this several times before, been a champion at least once in the past. Wingfield's up to 3rd now. He's just holding off now. Looks like Harry Cook. Also, we've got, by the looks of it, that was... contact in the background. Henry Williams has gone around. Now, whether he jumped through was pushed, I'm not quite sure. We only saw the tail end of that after the incident. He gets going again. So, we now work out who's who now. So, we've got Walters, Thompson, it's Wingfield, Cook, Hoffman, David Yates is in there too, and Andrew Murgatroyd. Then the next two cars behind are Matt Shepherd, and I think Jamie Elwood's in there as well. So, good start for the front runners up to the end of lap 1, and it's side by side for the lead. I think this possibly could be half an hour. This is going to be a typical Caterham race, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, sit back and relax and let them entertain you. It's a brilliant stuff to watch. You've got Thompson going around outside there. Interestingly, yeah, he wasn't willing, or Walters didn't have it, was it? But again, James Wingfield will be there to pick up any pieces as we got Walters going back down the inside of Thompson into turn 2. So it seems like Walters wants to stay out front there. He wants to see how that develops. A bit like we saw with Blair earlier in the races. He wants to see whether he can be there when the people behind start battling. We got Yates there. It's nice to see him up. He was starting a bit lower down the field, but now is firmly putting himself up in that top field. And he's come back into the 310R about halfway through the season, and he has absolutely injected himself at the front. We see Thompson going around the outside again, not going to work, but Wilson, Walters really wanting to stay out front there.
And also Rob Keogh doing a good start. He's moved up to 12th already from the opening lap and a bit, so he's making up a couple of spots already. And in that lead gap, as everyone's still pretty close as they should be. Williams for the second time, horses with Tom, just line of stone all the way through the right-hander. There is Rob Keogh with Gary Curtin, so Doug Christie. That's Harry Senior and so Rob. No, sorry, I don't know what is that now. So Rob Keogh's past Doug Christie. Side for the lead, 3 abreast for 3rd. Then there's a 3 abreast for 4th, and a lock up there from Harry Cook. That was a big lock up on the inside left. That will give a bit of vibration if he's not careful. Now, out of all of that, it's only David Yates who's moved up there into 4th place. So great stuff for him to work up through the order. The tyre smoke from Harry Cook's car still lingering in the air from that. So Fillet is now there too. Was that an issue or a problem for the 16 car?
Like
that was Stephen Metcalf. So he might have possibly just skipped over the chicane and had an issue there. But the top two trying to break away. This is having shades of the Roadsport race when we saw the top two break away, which was Bush and O'Flanagan. I suspect, rather unfortunately, we might get them to pull away again. But again, it depends on the cars behind to try and reel them in. Although these two, I think, might, given the fact it's a long race, I wonder if they've already made well, they're championship contenders, whether they've made a pact or not. They're pulling away at this point in time, and they're actually allowing these guys to try and fight amongst each other whilst they try and create that gap.
Yeah, that's so they've settled down into this. Walter's still kind of insisting on his car being out front, but you might now see a pack because they can see that gap behind. They might want to kind of solidify that, but even as we speak, that seems to really compress. Wingfield's lost out a little bit in this sort of slightly after the early couple of laps. He was up in third, now down to fifth again. And Hoffman, we've seen him have an epic start to the year, but unfortunately his mid-season this hasn't gone his way, hasn't had the luck and had some incident. And so it's good to see him back up there in sixth place and really getting stuck in.
Fastest lap of the race, the first proper flying lap on the race, apart from the, as in the first proper flying lap, but not the one from straight from the grid, went to David Yates, 2 minutes 10.076, but he is now down to fourth again at the expense of Harry Cook. So, so he's now going to try and get himself back in the mix, and possibly either he's playing the tactic game and asking Harry Cook to bring himself and the rest of the pack to get back onto these top two. To be seen, but we've got plenty of time to see it. And there you can see there's the answer. In fact, has gone straight to the back of second place, and he's brought David Yates with him, so it's now a leading quartet rather than a leading pair. Now team behind James Wingfield trying to pull away from this battle of the sixth going on between Lars Hoffman and Matt Shepherd. There's Andrew Murgatroyd at 8, Jeremy Elwood 9th, and Harry Senior back in 10th, and he's not too far away from him either. So round the outside, looking for second place, looks Harry Cook on the back of Pete Walters now, because Lewis Thompson slipped back through and got back into the lead. So through he goes. Yates is there in fourth, Wingfield fifth, and sixth and seventh also sweep through the shot. Further back, oh, one car's got a piece of bodywork flying off. That is I think Jeff Price's car. So Jeff Price is showering bodywork on the complex there. So he's lost a rear wing, and I think it was also what looked like it was there was a piece of bodywork rubbing. It finally then eventually he caught something, which he saw it kind of vault off the car on its own.
He had some early contact. Do you remember in that first bit that was Jeff's car, and it's just obviously pinged now. So a bit of the tyre just caught it in the right angle, and off it went as we go over the line. Another lap. There's still plenty of time for this race to develop, but we've absolutely got a front pack that is nose to tail. We saw Thompson get ahead briefly, didn't we? But he's still back behind Walters, and Walters again defending hard down the inside into the hairpin. So he is absolutely wanting to control and sit in front of this race. Problem with Snetterton is you can't do that for the whole 30 minutes. Someone will get by, and we will see whether his plan works out. Certainly, if these two can work as a pair, I think they've got the speed to break away from Cook behind.
So they can do, although Harry Cook's fastest lap of the race might suggest that Harry Cook thinks differently. In fact, he is getting into this leading group, and he is bringing now not just David Yates, he's also bringing James Wingfield with him as Thompson desperately at this early stage seeks a way back around Pete Walters, swinging this way and that, thinking, come on Pete, either give me the runs at the front or just, you know, or at least put your foot down. So now we've got Shepherd and Hoffman also getting into the mix too, so that's now 7 cars between each other. Here comes Thompson again, he'll stick close on the exit of August. David Yates also closes up under brakes to put Harry Cook back under pressure, although I wonder possibly if at this early stage to put him under pressure, he's just trying to give Harry Cook a bit of inadvertent backup. He's probably played the smartest game out of all four, thinking, right, I know what these two are up to in first and second. Harry's trying to stay with them. If I latch onto Harry and kind of work together with him in inverted commas, there's a good chance I could pick up the pieces if these three start fighting, which they are now, look, because Harry Cook's getting right involved. I think that's a piece of bodywork as a legacy off of Jeff Price's ejection of his right rear wing as he comes out through the right couple of the complex of Brundle and Nelson.
David Yates started racing with me in 2013, so again he's got a lot of experience on this grid, and he knows and has seen most racing scenarios. As we see the slippery surface flag out there for that wing, if you get that wing stuck under your tyre, it can be, you do lack a certain amount of braking, that's for sure. But yes, David, by sitting in the coattails, that means he can then just let the gap come back without actually having to do anything.
Yeah, I think I'm certain the slippery surface flag also can double up as the debris flag as well. So if there is a piece of debris on the track, there is a warning. It's some kind of hazard, whether it's fluid or potentially a piece of bodywork. So, shot the sky there for a second. What lovely sky on a Saturday afternoon. Back to the action on track. And
Jonathan Ems and Chris Welch, they're going nose to tail. So Jonathan Ems getting absolutely stuck in there in 16th place, so making up some spaces. Although he's lost out on that lap overall. Looks like Giuseppe Fillet might have actually moved up on that lap.
It looks like that, and also Jeff Price also in there too as well. He's recovering, so is Metcalf and Welsh in there too, and also trying to recover. Looks like Henry Williams in the Williams automotive car. He had that spin early on as well, and he had that I think it was spin up at the complex, wasn't it? So he now has got to try and pick his way back through up in 19th position. He's now on the back of Chris Welch to try and make that move. He looks at the inside line and looks up the inside, and it wasn't quite after you, was he? Kind of it's position, so he wasn't going to be after you anyway, but Henry Williams didn't quite make the big dive up there. It looks like Chris managed to brake just late enough to hold off that move for that corner, but I think on the run down towards Agostini, I would expect camera for the moment. Yes, he does. So up the inside goes Henry Williams. It's 18th place for him at the expense of Chris Welch. And now next target is going to be Jonathan Ems in that bright orange car for 17th position.
It's great to see all like the sun making everything look very epic at the moment. The gap at the front is still looking epically tight between Walters and Thompson. Cook with a little bit of a gap back there, but Yates obviously still stuck on his tail. He's still following this Jonathan Ems battle there with going through. And here's back to the lead group now. So we've got David Yates and James Wingfield still there. Remember, James was up in 3rd, slipped down to 5th, but he's definitely been involved and maybe just playing that patience game at the moment, just letting the race come to him without putting the effort in.
Yeah, I was going to say the time of day does kind of fit to kind of end the season, or the time of the year, and the fact that the days get shorter, and with championships concluding towards the end of the year, there's actually the time of the day in terms of getting shorter and the sunset's coming in earlier. It does give it that proper like end of season feel. That kind of it does add the last couple of races of the season. It gives you kind of vibes of the sun setting on the season and everything else.
As possible.
Pretty epic. And what is also pretty epic is his battle here. Now Lars Hoffman has lost his left rear wing, so that's happened somewhere I think out of our shot. I think so. He's now back down to that would be 6th position. Former double Caterham champion. He won the Roadsport Championship. It was Roadsport Championship 2019, 270R Championship last year. And then, or it might have been a couple of years before that, 2018, 2019, and 2020 he was in 310Rs. We're both sort of trying to work it out in our heads, but we've still got plenty of time to do that. 19 minutes to go before this race comes underway. So 18.5 minutes to go, just under. Another attack for Lewis Thompson into the complex. David Yates is into 3rd now, so he's managed to work his way past David Yates. Sorry, past Harry Cook, not David Yates. He didn't work his way past himself. James Wingfield ahead of Lars Hoffman, 5th and 6th respectively. And then it's Andrew Murgatroyd, Harry Senior, Doug Christie and Jamie Elwood. Staying in 11th place. So only one car away from the top 10, and his gap between them is only about 0.2 of a second. So he's got a chance to get into the top 10 in his first 310R race. And probably just adapt to the fact he's got extra power, a different rev limit, a limited slip differential, different tweaks on the car. He's got to try and make different elements of the car he's had to add on to. So Rob trying to adapt to this new car and doing quite well in 10th position.
The extra few horsepower and the limited slip differential certainly again make it again it's another step up. It's we talk about it's about that 1 to 2 second gap per step, and this is these cars are about that much faster on a single lap. It's just worth pointing out that we had Walters in the qualifying doing a 2:07 in qualifying, and you can see how incredible fast that was earlier on today, as the 2:09s is the kind of regular time that we see. So he must have had the absolute perfect lap in qualifying, and it shows the ultimate space he's got. And they again have pulled that tiny gap. And remember earlier I said when we saw a gap in the 270s that maybe it was going to develop, and this one it has got that threat again. If they will work together a little bit, it will happen, but it depends whether Walters actually wants to back him up into the rest of the what we've seen so far. That does seem to be the case. 2:09.3, a fastest lap in clean air.
That's been duped now by Hoffman to 8.9, so he must have got a toe there as the two championship contenders go toe-to-toe into the right hand of Richie's corner. Now this brings a rather resurgent Harry Cook, who carried all the momentum. He was the first of the 3 cars on the brakes into the Wilson hairpin because he was carrying so much speed he had to brake earlier to not hit the back of them. So that's how fast he approached the corner. But again, that's what happens when you've got 2 cars side by side like that. You kind of kill the momentum a bit because they're so focused on each other. They're not on the ideal racing line that you want to take, whereas Harry Cook could just swing through, take his perfect racing line and just sail right up to the back of them again and realised, well crikey, I'm going to hit them, braked earlier, then got himself back into the mix. They're coming to put a lap on a back marker.
That was Harry Landy, so he's had an uncomfortable start to this race because you wouldn't expect him to be caught up so far, so I imagine he's had an incident or two. But like you say, back markers always become an effect. But Harry Landy's got a bit of pace, so it probably will be a little while before they catch up to him. But yes, he had all the speed coming through turn 1, but nowhere to use it. The track was absolutely blocked in front of him, so he had to get on the brakes early just to make sure he didn't hit the rear of the other 2 cars. But these 2 have permanently been in place 1 and place 2, and it looks like they want to stay there. And is Thompson playing that just clever waiting game? Well, certainly the rest of the season says that he's got all the answers so far. Will Snetterton prove the same?
Snetterton always tends to provide quite an epic, or at least one incredibly epic Caterham race, and this is probably a contender already. We've still got half the race to go, and it's probably not certain that it's wise at all to try and call any kind of a favourite for this race, because there are certainly 6 or 7 drivers here who are all very capable of taking this victory. Battle on here between that is Rob Keogh, in fact. Rob Keogh, Jamie Elwood. That's a scrap going on for it's currently 10th position, and Rob's just want to get his elbows out here and try and find a gap through, but Jamie's going to hold on. A sort of swing through the bottom of the compression at the bomb hole and up to the other side again. And across the line go the leaders. Not quite getting Harry Landy. Across the line they go. Side by side again, where we've seen this before. Walters and Thompson. Walters this time on the outside line. David Yates again pinches the fast lap of the race, and he was going for a possible move around the outside of Harry Cook. Is he going to go for it? Not quite. Slips in behind him this time, but he's going to try and get himself really involved here. They're 2 by 2 down towards the Wilson hairpin once more. Under brakes for the 180-degree hairpin, and now it's Walters who slots in. Thompson falling into line in 2nd place. It's still Cook, and it's still David Yates, and here comes Thompson again, looks to the outside. If you get stuck on the outside line, it's quite horribly off camera on the outside line, that corner, so that's not where you want to get caught out. You can pass around the outside, but you've got to have a lot of confidence in the grip and setup of your car to pull that one off. Otherwise, you're just going to be sent straight to the outside of the circuit and possibly off onto the grass.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really off camber. There's a couple of places. There's not a lot of gradient at Snetterton, but that is one of the places that do have that camber. For me, it still looks like Thompson is actually quite comfortable there. He's not where we've seen him working away at the steering wheel before. Actually, I've seen a couple of very under control at the moment, so he certainly feels everything's still under control. That when you're in the middle of a sandwich, isn't it? And David Yates now up into 3rd place, so he has now disposed of Cook, so that's good to see. And we've got the eternal Wingfield and Hoffman ready to pick up any pieces for in the closing stages. We're moving into the last 10 minutes of this race. Still a little way off, but they're putting in a good show so far.
I will say David Yates will have the memory of losing out on the victory at Croft burned into his memory, thinking, I'm not going to have this happen for a 2nd race weekend in the row. He will be absolutely pushing, and I think we both know if he does win, it'll be incredibly popular, because he's a very incredibly popular paddock, a guy, a name around the paddock. Everyone kind of knows, and everyone loves who he is. So anytime he's successful, it usually is quite a big roar from the supporters in the paddock. He's a very popular guy, and a win for him will do him a world of good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been racing him for absolute years now. He has never managed that win. He did come 2nd, but luckily I was in the win on that day. But it was great to see him up on the podium, and it's great to see him later in this year just absolutely putting in the performances that sort of and it's great to see the rewards being given to him.
Right. Well, what I'm going to see for the first time at all today, in any race we've had today, black and white flag going out for somebody. I presume it's for track limits. Now, I can't see the number board, but we usually get a race control message on the timing screen. As there goes David Yates into 2nd place past Lewis Thompson. So up in his 2nd place goes David Yates. Now again, we didn't see I didn't see the number board, so somebody it was obviously a double-figure number, so it's not anyone with a single-digit number, which is it's everyone apart from Harry Cook, shall we say? That makes it any easier, which it doesn't. Now David Yates is getting really stuck in here. He's trying to defend from Thompson, he's looking up the inside line. That Yates, as he's rightfully to do so, shuts the door and closes it down. And Cook now is under attack from Hoffman, who's gone round the outside to try and take up 4th position. Now he's into 4th, and now he can pressure Thompson. And Thompson, who's the championship leader, he knows he's got a few points ahead of him on drop scores. 11 points ahead of Pete Walters on drop scores. He knows that ultimately right now, every single moment he spends not in front of Pete Walters or right behind him ready to pounce is potentially points he could be losing if he can't get their way into the checker flag.
And this is exactly why we've seen Walters wanting to really stay in front as much as he can, because you never know when that other situation is going to happen. And David Yates is actually, he's being that interference. And it looks like Thompson's going to get past him here, but had he not, then there's every chance that Walters could have actually pulled away. But Yates is still there. He's still there. Thompson has got back, but you can see the little gap now developing.
No, I think so. Hoffman got into third, actually. So it looks like Hoffman managed to steal third from Thompson. So it's Walters, I think, that leads now, by the looks of it. Yates in second, Hoffman's up to third. So I have to say, I mean this politely, but given the fact he's been a prominent racer before, where's this last Hoffman? Where's he come from? We've missed this last Hoffman for quite a while, but he's now back in prominence again in terms of his pace. His tail's up for this one. He's in the pack now, and he's getting in the mix. So sorry, you're right. Thompson was back in front. I correct myself. So Thompson is leading. It's then Yates in second place. Hoffman's third. Walters was the one that got the big shuffle down to fourth in the complex just off camera, and he's trying to get back in the mix here. So now it's roles reversed. It's now was at one point on that lap. It was Walters first and Thompson fourth. It's now Thompson first and Walters fourth.
And they're going hammer and tong into the chicane, the hairpin as well. So it's all still looking likely to change. But Hoffman there, we said he was ready to start picking up pieces, and he's definitely started doing that. With now everything's reversed, isn't it? For a lap ago we were saying how it was looking good for Walters, and now it's swung back towards Thompson again.
And going to third place also gave Lars Hoffman on that lap as well a new fastest lap at the race, 2 minutes 8.476. Only David Yates is the only man. Neither of the championship contenders have been into the 2 minute 8 yet. It's the two drivers in between, sandwiched in between them in this race at the moment, that are literally the fastest men on track. Well, actually, the only other person who did that was James Wingfield. So neither of the championship contenders have set a 2 minute 8 lap time so far. Reason being, they're so busy battling each other, they haven't had the time or the chance to set a quick enough lap time to take that fastest lap.
They've also been pushing the air out the front, haven't they? They've been in that lead, so they've never had the opportunity of a tow. Like I say, we saw that spectacular lap from Walters earlier. But Thompson doing what he does best. He's got back out in front, and he's looking under control, isn't he? Whether we'll start seeing a little bit more, arm movement from him. Harry Landy there getting out of the way of the lead battle. I think that's a sensible move at that point, isn't it? To let them go and not be acting as interference. So that's good to see. As Yates here coming, Yates into second now. So great move there. So down the inside of Hoffman, and we've got Can Thompson hold on? He's done it so many times this year. Can he keep that clean slate for all the races he's entered?
But it's true that it's a pretty much 100% record, isn't it? Every single race he's entered this year, he hasn't contested every single race, but everyone he has raced in, he does have, you're absolutely right, 100% winning record. So that's one thing to watch out for. It's almost like, forgive the reference, it's almost like the streak in the Undertaker in WWE. Who can break it? Who's the one that can beat the dominance? It's almost like as well, who won the 7 UK Championship the last couple of years? John
Byrne.
John Byrne, that's it. Why can't I think of John Byrne? It was when Henry Heaton beat the streak in John Byrne. Now then, a time penalty's gone out. 5-second time penalty for car. 45. That's Rob Keogh. So he's been a little bit too much on track limits. There he is. So 5-second time penalty for Rob Keogh. It has to be track limits given the fact he's been running wide too many times. And this is one of the circuits where Dr. Mar was putting some wonderful little pressure plates on some of the circuits where if you trigger them, a picture goes up to race control and it's undeniable evidence that you've been transgressing over track limits. So I think at the moment he's not too fussed about that. He's more fussed about battling Matt Shepherd to get to 10th position, which is interesting because Matt Shepherd looks like he's dropped back and there's been a switch around there, which means that now Rob still isn't in 10th position, but everything's going on. Now, up the inside for second place goes Pete Walters.
Lars Hoffman there has lost his way. The nose cone is doing what we saw earlier.
Yes.
His nose cone is just slightly askew, and again, that will be affecting it. You can see a little bit of, maybe that's water as he's got a wing stuck under the car there. So there's definitely a bit of something going on there that we've missed off camera.
I didn't want to, it was the exhaust, but the exhaust is on the right hand side. On the left. It's a piece of something that's scraping on the ground. Here's Matt Shepherd still battling there in the number 11 car just ahead of him, Rob Keogh, who has that 5-second penalty now as they scrap over 10th, 11th and 12th. 7 minutes to go. Another battle there, you can see it. That's Jeff Price battling with
Gary Curtis. Yeah.
So side by side here for the lead, and this is it's the top two again. It's Walters versus Thompson, and just like that, Walters back into the lead now. Thompson second place, and Yates has pulled away now. So the fact that Topper's got the damage there, and also the fact that Cook and Winkler that bothered with each other, it's now allowed David Yates to become part of that top three. 6.5 minutes to go. Dare we dream? Dare we dream? Is it Thompson, Hoffman, or Thompson or Walters, or could it finally happen?
It could. I mean, it absolutely could. And being in the place following on to this finish straight, as we've seen earlier, you can easily draft. Maybe today's David's day, but we will keep our eyes open as we see Walters there looking up the inside of Thompson going into turn one. That's going to get tight. They've been absolutely hammering nails with each other, haven't they? They've just been going at it the whole race long, and whilst they've both slipped back very, very temporarily, they've both made it straight back up to that top again, and we see Thompson is still in that lead. So we're in the early part of this race. We saw Walters was almost permanently in the lead. It's switched around at halfway, and you know, the mechanics of this race are changing by the minute.
So top three have got a bit of a breakaway now. Lars Hoffman's kind of being a little bit of a cork in the bottle now to hold up both Harry Cook and James Wingfield inadvertently, as we now head down into the final closing stage to this first Caterham 7-3-10R race. Still Thompson, Walters, David Yates. That looks to be the definitive top three group, but of course, never say never. It takes one slip up for these three to battle amongst each other too much. Can give the three cars behind a chance to get back in. I think Harry Cook has got past Lars Hoffman now, because I think it was Cook that I just saw in the corner of the screen there. So I think he's up to fourth now, ahead of Hoffman. If we get a chance to glimpse them on the second half of the second part of that top six, we'll have a look. Jamie Elwood, meanwhile, has got past Rob Keogh, so Rob then has now got PC's right front wing dangling off on the front of that car, so he's going to be careful that doesn't fall off. And yes, confirmation, Hoffman is down to fifth and could lose now that position, 4 to 6th, if James Wingfield can get through as well. So let's watch out for that, side by side between the two leaders, with Yates still watching on carefully. 4.5 minutes to go. He's just biding his time for the moment. He's got a couple of laps in the tank. He's going to sit there and try and pick his moment, I think, if he's going to do it. Because now Wingfield does indeed take fifth position from Lars Hoffman, still with the carrying the ever increasingly dislodged front nose on that car.
And that's not going to be helping his speed down that straight, as we see Harry Senior here with Murgatroyd, and is that Doug Christie behind? Yep, Doug Christie doing well, and again he's had a really solid year with getting top 10s. Again we've got back markers coming to play interference here, so we've got
and look at David Yates. This is what now then, this is interesting. The run that David Yates has got, he's got past Thompson. He'll be side by side with Walters, no toe. Side by side, here comes Thompson again back up the inside line. Walters holds on, and so Thompson gets back in front of him. So, despite that moment of glory, that kind of like that wide-eyed moment for him to get back involved, he misses out on the chance to get it and drops back to third place. Both Walters and Thompson back at it again for first and second, and also the back marker also held them up, so it brings once again Cook and Wingfield and Hoffman back into contention once more. So those cars in 4th, 5th and 6th, don't count them out just yet. They're just on the cusp of getting back into this group and making it a 6-pack for the victory rather than a trio.
If they get half a chance, they will take it. As we see again, we've got Thompson around the outside of Walters. David's got nowhere to go at the moment, but he has played this race. He might actually be able to tuck out the inside of Thompson here, because there was a gap left. He has got it out the inside, and if he's got the momentum out the corner, which I don't think he has, so he's still back in third, but he's played this race cool, hasn't he? He's been chilled out when he's further back, and as soon as he's gone up to the top.
Keep getting flashbacks of the slingshot again. That move at Snetterton reminded me of the slingshot. He got the massive slingshot he got off the S's onto the back straight at Croft when he passed both the top two that were battling for the lead. He just got a fantastic run all the way down the straight and picked up the lead. It was just on the last lap where he agonisingly lost out on it. Can he turn the tables and finally get that first ever Caterham win? It's still possible. There's still 2.5 minutes to go. It's certainly doable, but he's going to have to literally get a move done, possibly maybe down the pit straight for the final time, and then get his elbows out. He's gone round the outside of Walters for second. Thompson's there as well. A little twitch of oversteer as he's trying to get the car rotated. Walters comes back at him into the right-hander and holds on for the time. But has to sit back and probably holds on for second place. They're going to go on to the last lap this time by. Further back, a bit of a almost battle we haven't watched too much about. This is Harry Senior, Murgatroyd and Doug Christie with their own battle in no man's land further back. Now this is interesting. Look at 4th and 5th and 6th. Harry Cook, Wingfield and Hoffman are all in now. The last lap board's going to go out. There's more penalties being given. Warning or a time penalty for track limits. Down the pit straight they go. Here comes Walters to try and get second place back from Yates, but Thompson's also in as well. 3 abreast into Richie's corner, round the outside of both of them goes Pete Walters and takes the lead from Lewis Thompson. And Thompson also gets back into second place. So Yates goes back down to third, Thompson back to second, and Walters goes from third to first.
Yeah, amazing. It's changing at every single corner, and like you say, we're coming down to the absolute, final moments of this race now, and it's had a great character all the way through. And these three have been the absolute, they've been steadfast at the top here, showing that their quality, and the guys behind like ready to pick up those pieces. And there's no saying that's not going to come into play yet.
So down the short straight towards Agostini for the final time. The sun continued to set and sink even lower as we get to the end of this race, the end of today's Caterham racing action. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of conversation and good chatter after this day's racing action, getting ready for tomorrow. Of course, we will crown at least 2 champions with the Academy races tomorrow. But in towards the complex in the final time of Hamilton and Oggies, and David hasn't given up just yet. He's right on the back of Lewis Thompson. In fact, he's as close as he needs to be down the back straight. He needs to be this close. Williams, yeah, that's perfect. Right through the right-hander onto the back end for second place. A little wide the exit, but he's still on the toe. They'll get the double toe from the 2 cars in front. If you can stay here for this final few corners, there's every chance he can spoil both of these guys' parties.
But we've got Thompson coming out around the outside. That's not the best way to go around here, but it is possible. So will he hold on around the outside? I think he's actually happy to sit here. He acted as a blocker there to stop David Yates from getting through. He's now in the position he wants to be, which is second, coming around Coram. So up towards the bottom hole for the last time. Then it's just Coram and Murray to the sprint to the checkered flag to see find out who wins the first Bilstein Caterham 7-3-10R race of the weekend. It's been a fantastic race at the front between the front 5 or 6 cars as they come back through Coram now. Walters in front, Thompson's there in second place, and so is David Yates in third. The sprint's going to be a sprint between all 4 of them. Up to the checkered flag they come. Thompson, Yates, and Cook is going to be in which order. It's going to be side by side with Walters and Thompson. Up sprint finish, checkered flag. Who gets his nose in front? Walters gets it on the line. Walters picks it up by 16 thousandths of a second in a typical Caterham Motorsport finish. Brilliant stuff. And David Yates still gets a podium, 3/10 of a second back. Again, he'll enjoy a bit of silverware after that one. More battling. Now, I'll say 16 thousandths of a second cautiously, because sometimes the timing screen does then flip back sometimes after it calculates it initially. So it hasn't changed yet, but it's telling us Walters got it on the line by 16 thousandths of a second. Yates is third, Cook is fourth, Hoffman fifth, and Wingfield sixth. Top 6 covered by 3.8 seconds. We put a start and finish line camera there just for that exact situation, just to make sure that there's no discrepancies. The camera will capture them as they go over the line, and yeah, what an epic finish. Thompson got a brilliant exit, and I absolutely thought he was going to do it, but it was just 16 thousandths there, not there. So his clean sheet for all races entered is blemished. A second place on it, Scott. Well, what a season so far. But Walters proving real fast. He defended like I didn't even think was possible around this track. Just like the Undertaker at WrestleMania, the streak is broken. Lewis Thompson's streak is over as a race winner because Pete Walters, former champion, and his key championship rival has picked up the victory. There it is, provisional confirmation. Pete Walters takes the win by 16 thousandths of a second from Lewis Thompson and David Yates. That first win will come, but not quite today. 3/10 back in third place. Harry Cook fourth, means the top 4 are covered by 0.6 of a second. Then last Hoffman in fifth, James Wingfield sixth, then Harry Senior, Murgatroyd, Christie and Shepherd. Then Jamie Elwood, Jeff Price, Gary Curtis, Giuseppe Fillet, Rob Keogh finishes up 15th after his 5-second penalty for track limits. That's Henry Williams, Jonathan Ems on his 17th on his comeback. Then Chris Welch, Stephen Metcalf, and Martin Gleach, with Harry Landy also finishing, but he was 2 laps down after an earlier problem. And last, Hoffman, meanwhile, takes the fastest lap as well. One more race to go here, but thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for more action here at Snetterton, but for those watching on the BRTC the weekend of the day for the CMMC Super Saloons and Tin Tops. So for the final time today, it's going to be Chris, down to you.